I will read the FOIA statement. In compliance with the Freedom of Information Act, notice of this meeting was submitted by fax to the Spartanburg Herald Journal, posted on the bulletin board in the lobby of Town Hall and on the town's website. We'll have roll call.
Ms. Lemons.
Present.
Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
Ms. Easler.
Present.
Ms. Hardy.
Here.
Ms. Pennell.
Here.
Ms. Burke.
Here.
The next thing on our agenda will be the Town of Packard zoning ordinance discussion.
Minutes.
No, minutes. In the minutes.
We're gonna,
It's up to y'all. If y'all feel comfortable going ahead and approving the minutes, y'all can. If you want to wait till next meeting, that's up to y'all.
we want to wait until the next meeting because it hadn't been read yet.
Because of when?
We're gonna wait until the next meeting.
I agree. Yeah,
Okay.
I second that.
So we'll just go on to the Town of Packard zoning ordinance discussion.
Okay. Okay, so we have made the edits. We have a final document that's been prepared for you and you all have copies of. And so we wanted to basically take one more spin through the document to see if there's any outstanding questions, any concerns, or just comments that you have about what we've done. Some of it we won't need to go through in detail because it's very general language. Other sections we'll have to look a little more specifically at. But if you just want to start at page 1-1.
Well, first of all, Kim Easler's name is not on the planning commission.
Okay.
I noticed it in the other one. Kim's name.
Oh, Kim Easler is supposed to be under the planning commission.
Okay. Okay. All right, so then going to 1-1, this first part is very general language again, just a short title, what it's going to be called, the authority under which that the state allows you to have a zoning ordinance. You see a highlighted piece there under the ordaining clause. Basically, I just need, once it's adopted by council, I just need to put in the ordinance number and the date of adoption. So that just reminds me that I need to go back and do that before we do an actual final approved copy. Interpretation and purposes, that's very, again, very general language about what the purpose of the zoning ordinance is. And then Article 2, definitions and interpretation. Again, these are just very general things. In terms of definitions, again, very general. You see, most of these you're going to see repeated in most zoning ordinances. The things that we added for Pacolet deal with things like mining and quarries. Because you have the quarry here, we wanted to make sure we had definitions that address those types of activities. And then after the last meeting, we added one for the general store. We had it as convenience store, we changed it to general store. And again, if you recall, that was the conditional use for a sort of a general store in a residential area to allow like a small neighborhood kind of general convenience store in those areas. So we added that into the definitions as well.
Does ADU or accessory dwelling unit need to be in here?
Let's see, that might be under dwelling unit. Let's see.
So how many zones do we currently have?
What was the question?
Patrick, how many zones do we have currently?
How many different zoning categories, how many are in the current ordinance?
Yes. Because there's 13 here.
You're not using all of them.
I was under the impression that we wanted to condense some of this, and that was kind of our goal.
You've got 9.
From 9 to 13.
Well, you're not using all of them.
Right, because like Plan Development District and the Flexible Review District would be part of those 13, but you don't have anything that's currently zoned that. What that does is that gives you the opportunity to do some different kinds of projects where you can negotiate more specifically on how a project is going to be developed. So those aren't currently in use.
So which ones are those on this list?
So Plan Development District, PDD, and Flexible Review District,
Well,
FRD.
this is the ones that are RA, R-20, R-10.
Right.
Single family, manufactured, C1, 2, 3, 4, industrial 1 and 2, outdoor recreation. So we're going from 9 to 13 without the ones you spoke of.
So the 3-22 and 3-23 Plan Development District, Flexible Review District, on that list, you're on page 3-1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Right, so there's 13, and then add those to be 15 total districts. So
we're going from 9, we're adding zones.
Oh, there's drinks down here.
Because I was under the impression when we started this that we were trying to kind of simplify the ordinance and condense it a little bit so that, because we had too many before.
I think the districts are simplified in the sense that there's more individual use type districts. And so whereas the ordinance that you have now is more about design than it is about the actual uses. So you could combine more uses, which I think made it a little more confusing maybe. And so while you have more districts, for example, you have light industrial and heavy industrial. So, that was sort of under the, natural resources district that you had in the current ordinance, the quarry. And so what you have now is you have 2, but that allows you to say, not just all industrial uses can be allowed everywhere, where maybe some that are good in this area because they're lower intensity and some that are allowed here that are higher intensity, but you won't want a district that allows that everywhere that zone. So it allows you to kind of have gradations in some of your uses.
Okay, because in that, it has like industrial, when I think industrial, I don't think a daycare center, restaurant. I think like industrial manufacturing or the quarries, things like that. But I don't think of a lot of these things that are on here, like a playground, which I guess maybe there'd be a playground.
Well, if you think like, you work in an industrial zone, but you need a place to drop your kids off when you go to work. So it's not necessarily out of line to have that in there. Other types of things that may be sort of accessory type uses in those districts.
I think that agricultural should be an industrial farming. That's my opinion. I don't think that's the appropriate place for that.
Well, I mean, it's, depending on the scale of an agricultural use, it can be fairly industrial. If you've got a big enough piece of property, you've got lots of equipment, they make a lot of noise, they have odor issues, potentially, say you got a bunch of cows out there.
Like a dairy farm.
Right. So it encompasses a wide variety of types of farms. It could be somebody growing vegetables, it could be a dairy farm. So somebody with goats, a lot goes into what is potentially agricultural. So I think that's why it's allowed there. And then it's also allowed in the residential agricultural district in a little different way. So.
Is this an issue of semantics? You don't like the terms, or?
No, I just don't think it's appropriate for that, for an industrial area.
I mean, if we changed the name, but kept the same zone, like.
You walked in late, so
Yeah.
we're going from 9 zones to 15.
Okay.
I think almost everybody on the planning commission felt that our main goal and focus was to simplify the ordinance and downgrade a little bit on so many zones.
I never understood.
We have
that.
4 residential, plus then there's manufacturing and all this, and then there's 4 commercial zones, and there's, recreation, and there's just, there's just too much
We've
going
had
on.
we've had these from the start, right? We didn't add these the last meeting, right?
Correct. So, there's 4 commercial
Well,
zones.
that's why we're having this meeting, is so we can discuss this stuff, because I don't think
Yeah, that's
most
why
of
we
us
had
are
all the
really
meetings.
on board.
So there's 4 commercial zones. And the reason you do that is because, again, some smaller commercial zones, the uses may be okay in certain areas, but you don't necessarily want Walmart in the same type of commercial zone, because you can have a commercial zone right next to your house that allows a small office, say, but you don't want something that's a lot more intense, but you still want a way to allow that somewhere in the community. And so that's why you have different sort of gradations, downtown, the central business district, you want that to develop differently than other commercial districts, because you want the buildings close together, you want the on-street parking and the public parking, and so that's why you have different options. I still think it's simpler in terms of how it's going to be enforced, how it's going to be managed. I think it's simpler for people to come in. If you're a business owner who wants to do something, I think this ordinance is simpler to interpret and to figure out how to use it. Simpler for Patrick to enforce it, to approve plans based off of this than your older one was, I think. So, you may disagree with that, but, so I'm not as worried about the total number of zones as it's easier to figure out what I need to do this type of project, so.
One of the biggest issues we had with the current zoning ordinance is it wasn't organized well. And there were a lot of times where it referenced another section where it says, you can do this under these conditions. And then you go look for the conditions and they don't exist. Or it would reference certain sections that weren't, there was nothing there. We can always take.
I agree, it was more confusing, I totally agree with that.
This one's a lot simpler.
But I know most of us here had a lot of questions.
No, and
Whether
that's-
it's been gone over for however long is irrelevant, because we all have questions. We're not comfortable voting yes or no on something that we have issues with.
Yeah,
And that we
this
feel
is-
that questions weren't answered, or things that we didn't vote on. So that's why we're here today, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, wanted to clarify.
I think if I'm understanding, it's more of a, how much is the fact that we're having 15 zones allowing more things than we want in here? Is it more of, we want to simplify to what we're bringing in and how quickly we bring it in? Is that kind of, because that's kind of the way I think about it too. Are we allowing so much, even though you're saying specifically for these districts, is it going to cause us to grow too quickly? I think that's one of the things that, Renee, is that kind of your idea on it too?
What was that?
Is that kind of your idea on it too, that the 15 just allows for too many different variables in it and we can't?
I feel like it could be simpler. I feel like it could be much simpler than having 4 residential areas, 4 commercial areas. If it's going to be commercial, make it commercial. If it's going to be residential, make it commercial. Have a transitional area where it can be either or.
If you did one residential zone, you could have high-rise apartments next to single-family homes. Okay, that's, the more complex it is, the more control it gives us, so you have less likelihood of out-of-control growth. If you make it really simple and short, we can make it 1 page, and that, there's gonna be 1 million holes in it. The bigger it gets, the more control it gives to the town. I don't like big,
Okay, so do you want
complicated
the town
documents,
having
but
all
at the
this
same
control?
time,
I thought
we
that's
kind of
what it
have
was.
to in order to reduce that boiling springs effect, which I keep hearing people talk about. So it's one or the other. Either we reduce the rules and kind of leave it up to the developers, or we clamp down so we can kind of dial in each area. The whole idea is to design a town.
So it may help to just go through the whole thing and then see if there are issues that we may need to take out. And the reason I say it's with I hear what you're saying, so 20,000, the R20 is a 20,000 square foot residential lot, half acre. R10 is 10,000 square feet, so it ends up being a quarter acre. RD, single family on here, single family duplex. I believe this one and the multifamily allow for a 5,000 square foot lot. And so then you go down to an eighth of an acre. To me, it gives you some more options I know Thomas talked about doing more densely populated areas. It allows certain areas to be more dense, and it gives us options, so when developers come in and say, we don't want to do half acre lots, we want to do quarter acre lots or eighth of an acre lots, it gives you some flexibility to be able to provide certain areas that are larger lots and some areas that are smaller lots that make sense for the buyer who's coming in to the community.
Part of the reason you have two single-family districts is this map here. And so this map is, everything that's in color here is a single family, has one house on it. And so what we do is we map it by the actual lot size. Because what we want to do is to have a zoning district that allows as much as possible in its existing form, i.e. doesn't make it non-conforming because the lot's too small, which makes it harder to develop in the future. And so,
Okay,
based
that
on
makes
that, looking at these numbers here, that's what we came up with the R10 and the R20. And so our goal, when you look at it on the zoning map here, you've got R10 here because a lot of those lots are somewhere between 10 and 20,000 square feet. And if you just made everything R20, then you have a problem if something happened here or somebody tried to build something, it would lead to more problems. And so it's better in the sense of we're trying to make as many existing uses conforming as possible in terms of the residential. And then same with the multifamily, the brown ones. Basically the brown ones are essentially multifamily already. So we changed this one after the last meeting. I think there's a project going on there.
But those brown ones are just the low-income housing, aren't they?
Well, they're multifamily. And so to allow them to remain, to be conforming, we develop those multifamily so that they can continue into the future.
Do we have a duplex anywhere, residential duplex currently?
There's a district, but I don't believe there's anything on this map. right
Because
now that's zoned.
my opinion and those that I talked to, we're against densely putting in houses in, but I'm only one representative. I don't know.
You're against what?
Dense housing. And the majority of the people I've talked to in the town, they're
Against
against
dense
dense housing. They do not want, they want single family. That's what they're asking. They want single
Single
family.
family or duplexes? Because we have plenty of apartments already existing. There's the ones over there by the fire department. There's all the other low-income ones. I mean, we have plenty of those.
But I don't think we currently have duplexes, and that's the area that's gonna be
There are
zoned for
some
those.
in the Mill Hill,
Yeah.
right? There are
Well, I think they were, but I don't know that they still
No, I
are.
don't, there's a couple that they rent out the sides of them, but there's barely, I would say, on my side, maybe 2 or 3. And I don't know that if someone bought that property, anyone that's bought the house out of the person that's renting it, they convert it to a one person. All the ones I've watched buy are converting them to one single-family home. And I mean,
But you're
that's,
saying you would rather not have duplexes?
I personally wouldn't, and those I talk to, but again, I'm only one person. I just know that from those in the community, that is one of the things that is the complaint about Woodruff, it's the complaint about Boiling Springs. The dense housing is a no-go.
What do you define as dense? I mean, I think the Mill Hill's dense.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone wants it more dense than that. I mean, you can't change what's already there. You're not going to make the Mill Hill
No, but
lots larger. I mean, that would be great. I'd love that, but I don't think anyone wants less
Would
dense.
be Fuller Street.
Are you gonna?
That's a little dense for that area. I
Oh,
think
single
that's what
family? Single family is dense?
When they're like, you
On
can
top
hand
of
roll
each
a paper
other.
to your neighbor.
So what's the lot, we gotta talk specifics. What lot size?
I mean, I think the
people require.
10,000, that was off of an average that you already had to make things conforming. I don't think that anybody's wanting to have smaller lot sizes, and I believe the duplex allows for that, correct?
So, yeah, I mean, we'll get to that when we get to the RD district, but I believe that one allows 5,000 square feet for a single family, but a duplex has to have 10,000 square feet. So, the benefit of a duplex is if you're going to allow 5,000 square foot lots, it's probably cheaper for somebody to do a duplex, to construct a duplex than two standalone single-family houses.
Right, but you're talking about the developer at that point, right?
Well, it's
That would
cheaper
be-
for them to build, it's cheaper for you to buy, or cheaper for you to rent. So it's more affordable for people in the community potentially. Or if you want to own a half, live in half, and rent out the other half, that's a reasonable way for somebody to do something like that. Now, in all these districts, we've added accessory dwelling units, so basically by saying that, we're already saying that, we're okay with 2 residential type units on a single-family lot. And so,
Which allows for like an in-law suite or something.
Yeah, it
Right.
wasn't.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be. I mean, it's an accessory dwelling unit. It could be your mother-in-law, it could be Joe down the street could rent it. You can't control who rents it, basically. You're saying this type of structure is allowed in these areas, so you have to be okay with whoever's in there.
Is 5,000 for single, 10,000 for duplex, so it's no more dense. It's taking up the same
That's the
space.
same, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
but you still have 2 families on that 10,000 square foot lot as opposed to 1 family, so
But
it
it's
is
no
more
more
dense.
dense. I mean,
But you could have 2 now on a 10,000 square foot lot with a house and an accessory dwelling unit, with the language that we've added, so.
same amount of people per square foot.
Yeah, but I don't think the accessory dwelling unit's gonna allow enough space for an entire other family, though. That's what I'm saying, because there has to be a certain percentage of the
Right.
house.
Yep.
So you're not putting an entire other family unit onto that property.
Now, one thing to consider is there are some people who can't afford to buy, they can't afford to rent a big house. It gives them the opportunity to have something a little bit smaller. Now, what you can do is if you don't want it in this part of town, then you put it in another part of town. But I don't think I could be wrong, but I don't think you want to say we don't want you in our community.
And right now, there's no
I think
property
that
that's
there's
zoned
enough
that.
growth
It just
outside
allows you to have that
of
tool in
Yeah,
case
it's
you
very
want to allow it.
exclusionary to say everyone's got to buy like a single-family home of this size and own this much land.
Yeah, but you all
over
talk
here.
about an identity for our town, and I think a lot of people's identity is here that we are a family town that enjoys outdoor life. We're not trying to make it so dense that you're afraid to walk out on a public street because you have so much traffic and people are flying through.
Having the lot sizes.
But
That's the reason we're doing the lot sizes. I mean, you get the lot size, that controls what you can do.
That's what they're talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna get,
And we also don't
Got a certain
want to
amount.
over-regulate and cause people to not want to do anything.
well, this is gonna regulate a lot if we say, if you can't
And that's what we
afford
were
this.
trying to come away from.
But which is it? Now we're saying we don't want to allow people in town that need an apartment or something.
And having the RD district,
Be like one.
But
it will
This is
be.
the environment.
But it will be endless.
This is not the city, this is Packwood. The
It-
people that have lived here their entire lives, Diane, Kim, Dawn, have lived here their whole lives. They don't want it blowing up like that. They don't want to think about apartment complexes and all these
Instead-
crunched-in homes and everything.
Instead, you'll get cul-de-sac after cul-de-sac of suburbia and all of your grass will
That's
be
better than
gone.
having a city.
City?
It's better than
We don't have anything
planting
zoned
all
for
this
city.
stuff in.
I mean, we're literally 10, 15 minutes from Spartanburg, and their growth alone should accommodate all the people that should be wanting to move into that stuff. I don't see why we have to continue on a trend that's already being done everywhere, so that by the time they get to Packlet, which is a more rural area, now we have all these buildings that aren't being used because the growth has slowed, and they prefer to be in Spartanburg where the things are already accessible to
Why
them.
don't we-
But the
why don't
trend
we
is
just go
single
through
family.
and just review each one of the zones on here, and then we can come back later on and talk about which ones we want to cut. How about that? Before we leave zone definitions on here, under zoning official, if you could also add zoning official / zoning administrator, because the book only talks about zoning administrator. I didn't see anything where it said zoning official.
Aren't they the same thing?
What's that?
Zoning official?
It is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. But if you look through the rest of the book, zoning official is not listed anywhere. So it needs to be zoning administrator on there. I don't care what
Whatever we're
you,
gonna be using.
I don't care what you call them. But if the definition is gonna have zoning official, it either needs to be zoning official throughout the whole book
Or zoning administrator.
all right, So keeping, and I'll add definition for accessory dwelling unit specifically in there. All right, so continuing in Article 3, the reduction of lot size, I mean, that basically you can't reduce it past what the minimums are. Use of substandard lots of record, if it's a lot of record, so say Tom owns a residential lot that's 9,000 square feet in a 10,000 square foot district. He can still build on that house, you would just adjust setbacks to allow him to build on it. Now, if Tom owns 2 lots that are 9,000 and 9,000 and they're right next to each other, what this says is he has to combine those to make them into one legal lot of record, so. But if he has one in his name and the neighboring one's in his wife's name, those are 2 separate lots, he can build on each one individually. So they have to be in the same name for that to, to force the combination there. Yeah, so we talk about the different districts and their purposes, and then the boundaries, annexation. We said in the event of annexation, such areas added to the town shall be assigned a zoning classification suitable for the property at the time of annexation. The conversation there was, some towns will say, when you annex it, it has to come in as your most restrictive single-family district, and then you would have to go through a rezoning process for to be able to use it the way they want to, if they want something different than that. This allows you to do that in one step, so. Because if you're trying to ask me to annex and I want to build a project here, I'm not going to do it if you can't guarantee me the zoning I need to do that, so, yes.
Under district boundaries, if you can add a section on there where it discusses the boundaries between the town and the county. We've dealt with that where we've got several properties that are half in the town and half out. And when I've talked to the county about this, it just basically, just some type of language that says that we would work together, and wherever the building is located will be where the building will be, whomever building official will end up being reviewing that. But when the building on the property is located in a certain area, it'll be administered based off of the zoning district. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Also on the annexation and zoning, when it does come up that a property is annexed in, do we have to specify, or is it implied that it'll come before the planning commission first, like when that gets annexed in?
So, I would say, since you're going to assign a zoning to it, that it should go to planning commission and then the council.
Yes.
When it's just the language you see in other ordinances where it's just R20 and it's a 100% annexation request, 100% of the owners have said that they're going to do it, then that, I think, just has to go to council and could bypass the planning commission. But I think when it's worded this way, where it's you're assigning zoning at the same time, I think that should go planning commission and then council.
Do we have to edit that language? Because I would like to look at that as part of the plan. I don't know, do y'all, would you like to see?
I think that's just standard.
It's implied in the language.
Right, process where you're assigning, so basically you could treat it as an annexation request, like for example, when I worked for Anderson and you had a case like that, we would create 2 file numbers, an annexation file and a rezoning file at the same time. So that way you had them, you could track them both ways because it was a rezoning from, in this case, unincorporated county to whatever it's going to be inside the town. Again, if you just said everything comes in as R20, then I don't think you have to deal with it, it just goes right to council, so.
So it won't be set up to the property owner will get to decide that when it comes in. It'll have to go before the planning commission first before it comes to council.
Well, I think it should.
I'd like it written that way.
Because again, I'm not going to
Yeah, we
annex
want
if
it
I know I
that
can't
way.
get, if I don't know I can get the zoning that I need to have for what I want to do.
We definitely want it to be that.
So it's
Want
basically,
that to be included into this.
so the way we have our annexation right now is they fill out a form and they put on there what zoning they want to be when they come in, and they sign it, and we notarize it, and it goes before council. Is it now going to go before the planning commission?
Well, like he was saying, if it's 100%, it's already zoned that, and it's 100% people or whatever owner to do it, then I don't think it should go through the planning commission, if it's already 100%, it's already.
That's the majority of our properties is Angelique lives outside of town. She has a property outside of town and she wants to now be inside the town. All the properties that are adjacent to her are say R10 and that say, you know, that you would come in at R10 and you would sign a form that you're okay with that. It'd be 2 readings of council and we'd be done.
Yeah, but that's when they're coming in as the exact property, and that's what he was saying, we would do that automatically. But if we're not, if it's undecided and your neighboring property isn't the same zone that that owner is requiring, I think it should be coming before us to decide whether that's something that we want to have in our town or not.
Well, even if that came before us, it would still have to go to council, right?
Well, yes, but we
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
yes, they would still have to approve it.
It adds a step,
When
right?
does it go before the planning commission then?
So, I mean, typically you would do public hearing and reading with planning commission and then 2 readings with council.
Okay. That just, it's a lot to bring somebody into the community.
Right.
Is that what y'all want to do?
Yes, I do.
It seems like this is another step so we
Right, it's
don't
an-
bring
yes.
people into the community.
What's that?
It seems like the trend is that we don't want people coming into the community, so this gives us another opportunity to stop that or block people from moving here. Being
We're not
annexed.
blocking, we're just making sure that it's conducive to the plan and what the neighboring people and the people that live here
A lot of people
want.
don't want that growth.
Yeah, they don't.
A lot of people don't want the growth that your vision is not the vision of a
Well, it
majority
will
of the
grow
people
around
here.
you. It'll just grow right up to our borders and
Not
be the
if
same
you don't
thing.
vote for it to do
No,
that.
you have no control over the county. The county line is right next door. They could grow all
And
around.
I think we're fine with that. I think we're fine with that. I like that I can go 10, 15 minutes to Spartanburg, but then when I get home, it's quiet. And the majority of the families and the people that I've talked to feel the same way.
I mean,
I feel like it's all about money, like, oh, bring them in. If they're
Yeah.
on the outskirts and they want to be annexed in, it's about money. People don't care about the money. It's not about the money to everybody else. It's
well, here's the
about
problem with
quality of
that.
life.
Here's the problem with that. I mean, if you look at how Spartanburg County allows somebody to develop, and you have stricter rules that you think are more in keeping with what you want to see happen, it would be better for them to annex in to the town and be subject to your rules, then you can control better what that development is going to look like. Otherwise, you're going to be subject to what the county allows, which is pretty much free reign. And so, I mean, me personally, I'd rather have control over what it's going to look like and then collect taxes off of it, rather than have somebody else collect the money and you get a development that you don't like because they don't have any rules.
Would
I
have
think-
to make their way down here first.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, it's
all
coming.
176,
Well,
there's nothing.
Honestly, I think that it's going to be incentive for people to annex into our town because there are literally people moving from the outskirts that are tired of that development. And if they can get a lot that they know isn't going to be busting to the seams in another couple of months.
Where do y'all think those 700 people is gonna be in this,
Union,
building?
Union.
They're gonna live.
Union, there is plenty of land to develop down in
But,
Union.
Yeah, they're gonna live here. A lot of them are gonna be living here.
Where though? That's the thing, we don't want to be Woodruff, and we don't want to be Boiling Springs, and we have the ability to not do that.
The other thing to consider, if you're not bringing additional revenue into the town, eventually the town will have to increase your millage rate to cover the cost to run the town.
Yeah, but when you bring all these houses into the town, it also gentrifies the area, and all your taxes and all your other property values, your cars, your everything is going to go up too. So how much is the millage compared to that? I'd like to see a comparison before I would make a decision on something like
I'm
that.
gonna say this, without growth, we die.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to grow.
But we haven't
But
proven that we can grow.
We can control our growth, but we still have to grow, so we can't just cut everything off.
But is our only option houses? Like, I mean, is that our only option to grow is houses?
No, we could do business.
Well, here's the problem with, here's the problem. I mean, what kind of growth do you expect here? You know, I mean, if you want commercial growth, you want restaurants, what do they look at? They're going to look at the population, they're going to look at the population density, they're going to look at the area income, because they have all their standards for what they need to see before they're gonna go locate somewhere. So the commercial follows the rooftops. So if you want more commercial growth here, other types of uses here, entertainment uses here, that all follows residential growth. Now, it doesn't mean it all has to be within the town limits, but, it doesn't work the other way. You're not gonna attract commercial and then people are gonna move here because they wanna be close to where that is.
Well, I haven't
So-
even heard anyone ask for commercial. The majority of what I hear is they're asking for recreational, which is stuff that we already have that could be developed. And I understand that maybe we wouldn't have all the income potentially to do that, but I don't see how much a development, a trail or something does. I mean, that is, we had a survey when we did our comprehensive plan, and that's what they want recreational and they want small town. That's the majority of what that survey said.
Well, this map limits a lot of growth and gives you the control if somebody wants to do something more dense, because other than where stuff that's more dense is already located, there's no real empty land that you could build apartments on now.
Exactly.
There's not, and having the residential duplex district instead of, because your option is to get rid of the residential duplex district, but then your only other option is a district that allows apartments. So that gives you kind of a step in the middle where we're okay with a small duplex development over here, but once you zone it that, you have to allow anything that's in that district. So I think it may be good to have sort of an intermediary stop in there so you don't have, because I will tell you in my experience, people will tell you one thing and then get in there and they come in with a project that's completely different. And so, because you're not approving, like when somebody comes in for a project or a rezoning, you're not approving what they say they're going to do. You're approving anything that's allowed in that zoning district. And so they could change their mind tomorrow, well, I want to do a couple of duplexes here, and then tomorrow they come in and, well, I'm going to build a 200-unit apartment complex because it's allowed now. And there's nothing you can do because now it's permitted by right. So that's why I think having some of those extra districts in there can help you manage that better. One, because you have it in there, but it's not on the map. So it has to come through you and it has to come through council for anything to happen. So you have that as a control mechanism.
It's gonna be a long 3 hours.
And most of your towns zone single family. And so, again, and that's based off of the lot sizes. We want to keep everybody's conforming, so, again, if you have a 9,000 square foot lot in a 10,000 square foot district, that's not good for you necessarily. It could cause a problem down the road. And so, you only have 2 single family districts. In Anderson, we had like 6, every 5,000 square feet. And so 2 is not a lot when you look, compared to other communities. I think mobile homes, I didn't hear anything where you wanted to allow mobile homes everywhere, so you need to you can't restrict them, you can't say you can't have them here, so you have to have some mechanism that allows them, but again, that gives you control because you can say somebody has to rezone it if they want to build a mobile home park.
I had a question about that, because I guess previous councils had voted, like, if you have a mobile home, you can't replace it.
So there are limited locations in the town of Packlet where you can have, or you can put a new mobile home on the property. And there's different definitions of mobile home. There is manufactured home, or like, for instance, where they build them off-site and they bring them in, versus, I hate to say this.
Well, the mobile home versus manufactured is a building code. So a mobile home meets the HUD code. A manufactured home is built off-site,
Well, I'm
but
just
meets the
wondering
regular
about
building code.
The mobile homes that are here now.
The ones that are here now that are not in mobile home districts, if they are taken off the property or they get burned more than, 50%, they cannot come back.
But how is that fair to that person? Because you have some people live in mobile homes that have been there since like the 70s, and they want to upgrade, but they can't.
That's your existing zoning ordinance.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, aren't we going over the stuff to change things?
That needs to be changed.
That's
What
not
do you
fair,
mean
because
by
I know
upgrade?
an older couple that's lived in their mobile home since the 70s, and they want to, they'd love to upgrade, but they can't. And they can't afford to move because properties have skyrocketed.
They can apply for a rezoning to have it rezoned to mobile home, would be one way to address that. And then it would be up to you and the council whether you thought that was appropriate or not, so.
But can't we just resolve it through this?
Yeah, can we,
This is
can
what
we,
I mean, I feel like our questions don't get answered and nothing changes to conform to what we discuss. So
What do you want is the question. Do you want to allow anybody to have a mobile home anywhere in town?
Well, depending, like, of course, not.
Well, that's the problem. It
Of course,
can't be
not in
dependent.
subdivision,
So-
residential.
yeah, can we add a grandfathered rule that if you had the property, you had the mobile home, and something happens to it, you are allowed to rebuild as long as it's the same property owner, is it allowed to do that?
And just like
And of course, put in there, like, if it's 1 to 5 years old, like new to 5 years old is acceptable.
You
5
can't-
to 10 would need to be inspected.
You can't really do that. That's not really legal, because then you're discriminating against somebody who's got one that's 6 years old, kind of thing. And so, you know, do you want to allow mobile homes? I mean, do you see them, I mean, I understand on an individual basis, somebody has a mobile home, but as a community, you know, you have the options to limit where they go by a zoning district. And so, you know, if something happens, apply to have it rezoned. And if, you know, everybody thinks that's great and that's good for that person, then you can rezone it.
I think that's how we should go about it, because of course, not in the commercial area. You know, there's rundown trailers over there that are rentals.
I'm
But
not
other
understanding.
areas, they
Well, that's the,
we allow-
see, that's the problem from my end of this conversation is, you know, well, mobile home is fine, they should be able to do it, but not here and not there. It's hard to, you can't really write that.
Hearing a lot of
You have to allow everybody in the same situation the same rights.
Even
So,
under grandfathered, even if the property
they're
doesn't
grandfathered in
pass?
now, you know, you have the rules in there for non-conforming
But when we
uses.
put the, like, say it's the, like how we added the section that specifically says if there's 50% damage or whatever, could we take that out? Can we say,
For every
okay,
use,
no, it would
then you
be,
don't, then you just don't put that language in at all then. Because, I mean, that's, again, you're picking winners and losers. And so if you don't want to have, if, you know, we're saying that, you know, for a lot of these uses, they're non-conforming because we want this area to develop differently over time. And that's why you have that language in there which says, okay, we want this, you know, to develop in X direction. But if you don't have that language in there, that stuff will never go away, and it'll never develop like that. And so, it's hard to write language in there, again, because now you're saying you're saying it's permitted without it not, with it not being permitted. Because you're saying I have the right to build back, so, but my neighboring property here doesn't have the same right to put a mobile home on their property. And so, that's a fairness issue to that person. And so,
I'm trying to envision like the town you guys seem to want where it's like all single-family larger lots, but mobile homes anywhere? Like,
But not
I don't-
anywhere but people that have pre-existing homes, that have lived here their whole life.
Okay.
It's family land, and because they have a fire or something.
But what
or they have an older
about, but
home,
this
they
is,
wanna upgrade.
okay, but this is for the future. What about after their life?
That's why you
Does that,
grandfather them in, and then if that property is ever sold, it reverts back to the code.
you can't do that.
can you do that based on an
That's not
individual?
legal, because that'd be like contract zoning.
Well,
And
you
so-
said last weekend that if a house like burned down 50% when they were talking about trying to do it, what, in the commercial district? That they could rebuild if it was less than 50%, and then once they sold that property, it would revert back. And this was said at the last meeting.
If it's
If it
abandoned,
wasn't 50%, then it had to be rebuilt as commercial, they couldn't rebuild their residence.
That's not based on a single individual and how long they've lived here.
right.
That's
And so
attached to
what that says
everybody,
is
not
if
a
it's,
single
you know,
person.
if it's non-conforming,
Anyone right
so
now.
the answer to that is to rezone it to a district that allows the use that they want. And so they would come in and say, my house burned down, you're not going to let me rebuild it, so I want to request that you rezone it to this district which allows what I want to do on it, and then I'll have the right to redo that.
does it have to, like, can we do that? Can we spot zone a property like that? I mean, that sounds like we're borderline.
Spot zone is sort of an overrated thing you hear too much about. I mean, to me, that's sort of residential next to other residential.
It's more or less, I mean, it's having commercial in the middle of a residential area.
That's more of an issue with something like that,
Okay,
right?
so for home to home, residence to residence,
Right.
it wouldn't be as, okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
At the crossroads of 150 and number 9, there's a church there. is Packlet United Methodist Church. There is the church, then the Sunday school, and then they have
Family Life Center.
Family Life Center.
Yeah.
And then behind the church, there's a house. So am I believing that that's commercial area? So if the church wanted to just sell the house, would they have to sell it to a commercial developer versus a residence?
Is the house now? Somebody's living in it?
No, no one's living in it now, but it was a parsonage.
So,
And they're wanting to tear that, they're wanting to sell the house and take that money and tear
Yeah.
down the Sunday school building that is not up to code and
Right.
got mold and everything. That's,
We talked about that in the last meeting, and I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, that we were gonna make sure that it gets added into, because all the properties beside it and to the south are all residential homes. That just, we wanted to make sure, and that needs to be
but
added
that,
into as a.
but you're gonna have to survey it and actually take that piece of property out of
They're
it.
gonna do that.
right, but, so in your commercial districts, CBD, downtown is a little bit different language, but in your other 3 commercial districts, what it says is you can do residential in the commercial district according to your multifamily guidelines. So if they survey off a 10,000 square foot lot for that house, that could be a single family or probably a duplex, because if it would have enough land to do that. And that would be legal under the way it's zoned now, if it's zoned one of those commercial categories. So you could do that as, it would be a conditional use in that commercial district, so. So they, you could stay in that house, they could tear it down and build another house, and that'd be fine.
So they can tear a residential house down.
No, they're wanting to sell the residential house.
But they could, because,
You just said they could
because
tear the house
residential,
down and rebuild the house, but last meeting, you said that if a house caught on fire that's in the commercial area and it was more than 50% burned, they have to rebuild, and as a commercial building, they couldn't rebuild their residence.
Didn't we
Isn't that what we're
change
saying?
it's really the opposite is what we talked about, is
Yeah.
if you have a commercial building in a residential district, so the commercial is the non-conforming use, then it would have to revert back to the underlying zoning. And so in your commercial district, again, residential is allowed as a conditional use, and basically what it says is you follow those guidelines of the multifamily district. So it could burn down, you could rebuild it, that's not a problem. The problem is the opposite way, is if you have a commercial building that's zoned residential,
Makes more sense.
is where you have the problem.
Yeah.
So,
Because I thought about that in the commercial area here, there's a lot of houses. So if their house did burn down, that's not fair to them if they live there, whatever.
right.
It's not.
Now,
fair
the
to
central
them.
business
If they
district-
build their house, they'd have to make it a commercial, it didn't
Right.
make sense to
The
me.
conversation that we had was about that,
The last meeting?
Last week?
No.
so the conversation that we had, where that was the problem, was, and this lot here on Church Street, because that was zoned, at the time, it was zoned central business district, which residential rules are different. So that's why we changed that to the T, to the neighborhood commercial, to the allow you to do the single family type unit. And so that conversation was because central business district is really about, you've got a 2-story building, you've got offers for retail on the ground floor, and then you have residential above.
Because that whole side of that street is all residential, there's
So that's why we
no,
changed that on the map to the other category which would allow that. So.
But that, I had a question about that too, because that's the transitional commercial, right? Like that's gonna
That
be
is
one.
a neighborhood commercial,
And
right
that's like
there.
like that could be both. Didn't that one allow multifamily? Does that district allow multifamily?
So your, well, all of them, C1, C2, and C4, because C3 is your downtown, all allow residential as a conditional use according to the multifamily guidelines.
So,
Depending on the
essentially-
size of the property, that could be single family up to an apartment complex or
So
townhomes.
on that road though, that's enough space.
they can put apartments over there in commercial area all they want.
Wait,
Yeah, you don't want apartment buildings next to the college shop?
no, I do. Are you being sarcastic?
I was just then, but I mean, why can't they put them there? Everything's within walking
They
distance.
should. That's, I think, how it's zoned, is it not?
Yeah, that would allow, right, the way we did it is, would allow that now.
You guys just said you were against it, though.
Not in the
single-
commercial area. We don't want it in other places, but they could put all the.
But they're not allowed in the other places. What do you? Half it seems only want
Could you
single
set it up
family.
in certain areas?
Is that what we just said? But now apartments and commercial is okay?
Additional uses.
In
so we-
certain areas.
That's why we have this map that's more complicated. That's the point of the map. Yes, I only want dense houses in the dense area, so that we can save some grass, save some prairies and some pastures.
And they wanted to put it back.
If it's all single family, it has to spread out. I feel like we're not,
It's problematic.
what's your understanding of this?
Because then you're.
You were just saying
you're
single
not-
family
you're-
only.
You have a district that doesn't allow the people to have the same rights.
Like the mill.
So-
Well, it's already,
Nobody
that's
wants-
what we're proposing.
Because if the mayor's got a mobile home and you don't.
You're arguing against
He can build
it.
his back, but you can never have
But that's
one.
how it is.
So that's.
You
it's
can't
a
put
pretty
apartments.
issue that, well, if you let him put it back, how come I
Who
can't
was?
have
Was it just Chantel?
So,
It
that's
seemed
why I
like you were agreeing
hesitate.
with it.
I was
to do
agreeing that
something
they should
like
be able
that,
to
so.
put apartments where they put those apartments over by the firehouse on Church Street. They should be able to put apartments there.
So that strip that we rezoned there, you could do, again, anything from single family to apartments there. So, well, that was part of that conversation, but the reason for that was because it was, I had that as part of the CBD, Central Business District zoning, which is different from the others. So we switched that already to allow that there. So,
Under section 39, RA, residential agriculture, you've got ADUs on there.
Yes.
But I didn't see on there just A's. Like, for instance, someone has a shed or a garage or barn is included under permitted uses. But I didn't see just shed or garage. It's for the accessory dwelling unit, it's my understanding that actually someone lives in an ADU.
yes.
I didn't know if we wanted to allow, or at least put in the conditions on there, an AU and not an ADU.
EGG, what are you saying?
I don't know what you call it. It's an accessory unit, but it's not a dwelling unit. Like
You're just talking about sheds or
Shed or
just
something like
sheds?
that.
Are they not, are they banned?
Sheds to live in?
No, just,
No, like a she shed. They're talking about like a she shed.
Okay, so just basically accessory uses, just accessory, like, so for example, if you skip ahead to the next section, accessory use for residential dwellings in compliance with the provisions of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So basically adding that line to, so accessory uses for a farm, so that would be, you know, that's garage,
Yes.
you know, that kind of stuff,
That's
so. Okay.
I shut the
What page is it?
So that line is in all the residential districts, but 3-10.
Okay, I'm way away.
So on the R20, the top line under permitted uses says accessory use for residential dwellings in compliance with the accessory use section. So basically, you just put accessory uses for agricultural or residential uses. So things like, you know, you already talked about barns, but like a storage building or a garage, something like that, you know, is what you're looking at there. So I mean, like, in terms of residential dwellings, accessory uses would be garages, swimming pools, storage buildings, things like that. Something that's typically seen with a residential house, so.
So you were saying earlier about like in-law suites or something?
So that's the accessory dwelling unit. So if we go, the language is the same in all of them, but, so we added that language in there to allow it. Again, it has to be in the backyard. You can have it, if you have a two-story garage, it could be a second story of that garage or a separate unit, single story in the back.
Any way to change that so it doesn't have to be in the back?
Do you want, well,
And I'm just asking that because one of my properties is long. The
Yeah.
house is in the middle. It's an acre, the house is in the middle, and everything's to the sides.
most people don't like accessory structures in somebody's front yard. So think
But
like,
it's behind other houses,
right.
the property.
She sits on a lot where there's.
I have two lots that are like.
One
in
house that
Hell's-
sits on the road, and
Yeah.
there's another house that sits back behind that
On a
house.
separate lot.
And that back
So you
property is behind the two properties in the front. So it goes straight across. The house is in the center and the two sides are like
I
a
think
third of an acre or whatever on both sides.
if you
I would
showed
rather
that,
not change that and have you get a variance.
if you showed that to the BZA,
We can see.
if you showed, that would go before BZA, is that right?
Yeah, that would be BZA.
Yeah,
I think.
you
So I
could-
have to request.
You could
Yes.
demonstrate a hardship and they, yeah.
Okay.
I think you have an unusual circumstance there where, you can justify it based on, the narrowness of the lot, you can't get back
Because I
there,
thought about putting like a metal garage on the one side.
Yeah.
But
I would say the way to, so basically, when I say behind the structure, I would say behind the front line of your house.
I was gonna
mean, it
say-
doesn't have to be completely in the backyard, but no closer to the road than the front line of your house, is typically how
not
that's,
even on the road, so.
so, right. But I think that if you want to do it in
25
a,
feet in the front, 25 feet in the back. There's no way to put a structure in the front or the back.
so I would, so again, if it doesn't fit by this language, in your case, because you have an unusual lot, I'd say the variance would be to do that, would be the way to do that. Because again, you're saying I have a physical hardship which does not allow me to reasonably follow this rule. So I want to be able to do this, but do it in a different spot. So, and that's what the variance is for. You're supposed to show some kind of physical hardship which doesn't allow you to follow the
So what
rules.
it says now is it has to be behind.
Behind the front line of your house.
Or it says side
Side
yard,
yard,
side
backyard.
yard, but behind, like it can be on the side, right? But behind the house, as long as it's
Yeah,
on.
see, I don't like that terminology.
Well, do you want it in front of your house?
Not in front, but I mean, it could be on the side.
Well, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
that- yes.
Going
So-
in the
That-
front,
yeah.
but could be on the side, doesn't have to
No
be behind.
closer to the street than your house is what he means, but it could be on the side.
That's your lot. Here's the road here.
That's the same as the way it
This is the front of your house. It has to be located behind that front line. So it could be inside, could be anywhere in the back, that meets the setback requirements.
But it just couldn't be,
in front of your house. So basically take a laser, do a line across your lot right at your front porch.
We haven't seen.
Behind it. And the way that thing works.
all right, because it said behind, so I was.
But behind the front line of the house.
Okay.
So, anything behind that front end. Oh, having a break. Behind that.
Hey, Diane? No. You spilled this, so.
Yeah,
Monday comes-
Don, he hit my arm.
Do we have any other questions about the residential agricultural districts? So again, this is something you're allowed to have. There's nothing zoned that on that map right now. But if somebody wants to do some sort of
And what is that?
commercial agriculture,
Where are we?
so this is page 3-6, the RA district, residential agricultural. So this would allow you, if you wanted to have horses, or you wanted to have a small farm, this would allow you to do that. You would rezone it to the residential agricultural district, and it would allow you to do that in the communities. But again, somebody has to come request that, you have to approve it, planning commission, 2 readings or council it, like any rezoning. And then, I don't know that there's a lot of existing property I think that could happen with. I think it might be, somebody wanted to do that. I'm not really sure why they would want to do that.
Where is
Then they
this
could
on
stay
the
in the
map?
county. There's none on the map right now. So, but it allows you to have that option to zone somebody that, to, if they want to have that use. So, say he has, let me just pick one here. Obviously, this is not where to go, but you have a large parcel here. Somebody wanted to say, I want to have some horses, I want to do whatever, have goats, but I need to be agricultural in order to do that. They would come in and say, I want to do that, I want to have goats, I want to have horses, I want to have a little farm here, so I need a residential agricultural zoning district. You would review it, see whether
So you can do that just anywhere.
No, it has to be 5 acres. Renee, it has to be 5 acres, right? It has to be 5 acres.
But again, if you're going to have animals, you need enough property for them to function on.
We went backwards.
And so, so say Renee wants it, Renee has to come in and say, I have a backlot, I want to do this, I need to get a rezoning, here's what it's going to look like, please approve. You have a hearing, you have a public hearing, so neighbors can comment on it, go to the council, approve it or deny it, go to the council, they approve it or deny it, and we go on from there. So, there's nothing here now, it's just allowing the option of allowing that if somebody wants that use. So.
I had a question. You said you had to have 5 acres to have animals. And is that just for a big farm? What about people that like just have some chickens?
Well, you have different rules for chickens. That's not in the zoning ordinance, that's in your town code. So as long as they meet whatever requirements are in there, yeah.
So
There's
that's like
usually for
running a whole
chickens.
farm.
Right, so usually for something like chickens, it's, I don't know what your rules are, but a lot of times you'll see no more than 4 chickens, no roosters. Like in Anderson, we had, you had to, build your coop, it had to be certain distance from property lines and that sort
I
of
was
thing.
just wondering, because I just wanted to make sure that like somebody didn't have to have 5 acres to have 5 chickens.
Right. So again, I don't know exactly what your ordinance says in
Yeah.
regards to chickens, but that is not usually a thing with the chicken ordinances that I have seen, so. It's more about larger animals. When you have goats, you have horses, somebody wants cows, they need more room,
Okay.
so. But. All right, so if there's no more questions about the agricultural, the R20 single family, and the R10, we can talk about both of them at the same time. The only difference is 10,000 versus 20,000. And again, I explained why, because of the lot sizes. Accessory uses, customary home occupations, non-commercial, agricultural or garden, publicly owned building facility or land, single-family dwelling. Conditional uses, they can have the accessory dwelling unit, bed and breakfast inn, cemetery, church, family child care home. That's not a commercial daycare, that's, I live in the house, I want to keep up to, I think it's 4 or 5, I think it's six or less maybe, that I want to keep in my house, my personal house. It's not the commercial standalone daycare. And that's all set by state rules there. The general store is, the sort of the neighborhood store that we talked about the last time. Golf course, park, public utilities, substations, water towers, schools, sports, community recreation facilities. And then basically anything else that is not listed is automatically prohibited, but we call out a couple specifically. No cell towers, no manufactured housing, no outdoor storage of all those things, and no retail, office, service, or business activities except permitted, let's see. I'm going to strike that line completely, because we allow the general store now.
So we decided to allow a general store?
It's listed under conditional uses now, so.
The Board of Zoning Appeals would have to approve it.
Right.
It does not automatically, can't just put one in there, but BZA,
There's extra steps. So somebody would have to apply to go before the Board of Zoning Appeals, you'd have to post it, there'd be 15 days public notice, a public hearing by the Board of Zoning Appeals, and they would rule whether it was compatible with the neighborhood or not, so. So it's just not, and then there's distance requirements, so you don't have a cluster of businesses, that's not really, it's really meant for a neighborhood type place, not a whole business district, so. So any questions or concerns about the 2 single-family districts? All right, duplex residential.
one thing I wanted to mention here. It discusses setbacks for, one thing that I did like about our previous ordinance that this doesn't happen here is setbacks in areas where there is an alley. So in the mill area, there's an alley behind the house. And I think in the previous stuff, it had like setbacks in certain areas were if it with an alley or without an alley. And so I didn't know if that'd be something that y'all are interested in at all. Do you want it to be where the homes can build right up to the alley itself? Or should there be anything where, I mean, for us, for driving vehicles through there in terms of trash trucks and everything, I would like to have a little bit more area off the alley itself so people aren't building right up to the alley. The ones that are already there, they're fine. But anybody who hasn't built right up to the alley, that you've got some type of setback in the mill area so that, and I think in this particular time it had setback, rear setback with an alley, by 15 foot from the alley center line, was the common setback throughout the entire area.
I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
For getting through those alleys and stuff, yeah.
Now, you're not talking about like a privacy fence or anything, right? This is specifically building, like a building or so if they wanted to put a fence right up on their property line at the back, they could do that?
That would be something that we need to kind of talk about at some point. I do want, one thing that I didn't see in here is any type of permit or something to put in a fence. And the only reason I suggest that y'all do that is because we have people in our community who build fences either on the line, on somebody else's property, and the permit would be to verify that the fence is being built on your property and not someone else's property. And one thing that I'd even recommend is that the fence is in your property, not on the line. That's another thing to.
Isn't there supposed to be so much off that line anyway?
So,
Statue and the county.
unless you have specific language that says that, you can typically build it right up to the property line. My personal experience from an enforcement perspective is obviously from when I was in Anderson, and basically we suggested you keep it slightly off the line so you don't have that issue of straying over there. But if the fence was 6 feet or lower, the building code did not require a permit. If the fence was going to be over 6 feet, for structural reasons, the building code said you had to have a building permit for it because of the higher wind load, because it's a bigger fence, and so they needed to make sure it was built appropriately.
I'm not talking about a building permit. I just want, to me, I could be wrong, but you don't want just somebody just putting a fence up and not verifying the fact that it's on their property versus on the line versus on your property.
Would they have to come before, like, so if there was a dispute before the neighbors and they did want to dispute it, there's no way?
That's a civil dispute. That's between neighbors. That would not involve the town.
What I'm suggesting is they do a zoning permit and they come up, they show us where the plat says the property line is and then where you are putting that fence in relation to that property line.
I think they should just sort it out themselves. I don't think the town should
Yeah,
butt
because
into
in
that.
order to do that, you have to know where the property line is, and a lot of people don't know where their property line is. So
Then they
they
shouldn't
can't
be
come
putting
to
up-
you and say,
then they
this
shouldn't
is
be
where my
putting up a
property
fence.
line is.
Then that they shouldn't be putting up a fence because they may be putting it on your property.
Yeah, but I would think you should talk to your neighbors first. I know that, like, most people typically, I know that that's not an average thing, but if you don't, then you do have a civil dispute, and that's between you and your neighbor at that point. I think butting in as a town is just, we're just butting in.
I thought the county had an ordinance about where you had to be so much off that line.
Well, the county may, but it wouldn't apply here because you're not the county, because you're not subject to the county rules. So,
I thought-
unless that's if it's in, I mean, I guess it depends if it's in like the land development regs and you're using the county land development regs, then maybe, but if it's in any other county code, it wouldn't apply to the town limits, so.
Because I know when I do something like that, I know what the line is, and I get 12 inches off that line.
Right, and we would suggest people, listen, you think you know where it is, but obviously we've seen too many cases where that was a problem, but we would give them advice, but I couldn't tell you, you couldn't build it right on your property line, so.
I don't think we need to regulate that. Like she said, it's a civil matter between neighbors.
And we're all grown up, gotta figure it out one way or another.
That means if someone builds, if Angelique builds on your property and you don't like Angelique,
I'll take her to court.
you take her to court. Some people don't have the money
She
to
built
take
the fence
it.
already down.
Well, Some people don't have the money to get a permit either, so there's that.
I think we
Well, so that, I mean, like, it ends up, if you don't have the money for court, I mean, like, I'm talking about like $10. I mean, I'm not talking about a lot of money. I'm just something to verify the
I
fact
just
that.
think that's more regulation. It's regulating people more and more.
Okay.
And I feel like we're doing a lot of that already in here. Maybe it's just me, but
All right, so you want to move to the duplex residential district? So again, accessory uses, customary home occupation, a duplex dwelling, non-commercial, garden, publicly owned building, and a single-family dwelling. Conditional uses.
318. 3-8.
Yep, just following along the next section. All the conditional uses are the same. The prohibited uses are the same. And then the setback information. So again, the minimum lot size per dwelling unit. So 5,000 square feet per unit. So single-family house, 5,000 square foot lot. Duplex is 2 dwelling units, so that's a minimum of 10,000 for a duplex. And you see the setbacks there from the outside property lines as well. And again, there's no property currently zoned in this district on your map. It's just a tool to allow you sort of an incremental increase in density where you think it may be appropriate. So if Diane wants to come in and build a duplex, she has to ask permission to do it. And you have to make a ruling. It goes to planning, public hearing, planning commission, 2 readings with council for somebody to do that. But it gives you the opportunity where and when you think it's appropriate without going all the way to a multifamily district that allows apartments and townhouses and all of that, so.
But we are going to set it up where it's going to come before the planning commission, before it goes to council to review the district that we're annexing in and listing as a zoning, right?
I mean, that's going to end up ultimately being council policy. I mean, my thing is if you are zoning it at the time that it comes in, I would think that you should have to go through what would be your normal rezoning process,
I
which would
guess
be
what I'm asking-
planning commission, 2 readings with council. So.
This is going to be law. If we write it into it as law here and the council passes it, then that would be the procedure, correct? That's the way that I would like
Keep
it.
in mind that the council does not have to take you.
I understand they don't have to approve it, and I understand it will probably be taken to discussion, but I think that it's a consensus, is it not? As a planning commission, we would like to see the property that's annexed in and make a decision as to what to zone it as before it goes to council to be approved, yeah?
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, we don't have to put a motion in for that vote, do we? Do we have to we can just have that rewritten in that language? No.
Yeah, I have a note in here to clarify that section, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the duplex district? Okay. Multifamily residential, again, very similar to the duplex district, except it also allows townhouses and multifamily, so apartments. Conditional uses are all basically the same, prohibited uses the same. Then you go to the lot specifications. So what it allows it, so in order to do duplex or single family, that's the same as the duplex district. In order to do townhouses or multifamily, sort of garden style apartments, first of all, you have to have a minimum of a half-acre lot. And for townhouses, that allows 8 units per acre, and for multifamily, 10 units per acre. It's got all the setback information in there as well, so. Which, by multifamily standards, is not dense for apartment development.
I have a question. Is there somewhere on the map where manufactured housing is allowed?
Right now, I don't believe there's any property on there that has that mobile home park designation on there. So anything new or rezoned would have to be rezoned to it, or if somebody requested to do a new one, it would have to be rezoned to that and go through that process, so. You do have, again, a few pieces of multifamily on there. I believe we all have multifamily on there right now, except for this one, and which we changed since the last meeting. I think there's a project forthcoming there.
What's that?
The one we changed to multifamily, there's a project in the works there.
Yeah, that's the microvan, the doctor's office.
Yeah.
So this is the only one that is vacant, but not vacant. There's a doctor's office on the front, I think, and the back part is vacant. But everything else is already developed.
So can somebody tell us a little bit more about that project? Was anyone aware we had something going in there?
So it's currently a doctor's office, or currently is an office. And the guy who owns the property has not been able to get it rented, and he's requested for the property to, during the rezoning, is to zone it so that he can put in townhouses in that spot.
Is it currently zoned that way? Where he could put townhouses there? Is the current zoning concurrent with that?
It's currently zoned as neighborhood edge. And under neighborhood edge,
Are you talking about the doctors?
Yeah, they're talking about putting multifamily in there.
yes.
Yeah,
The abandoned one on 150.
yeah, they're talking, I guess that someone's been talking about putting multifamily.
It currently allows for duplexes, but it doesn't allow for multifamily, which would be more than 2 units.
So they're waiting for us to pass this to allow that, but we weren't aware that that was going to go in there, even though we've been saying we don't want the density.
What's that? This is what the property owner wants to do in that particular community. that's been vacant.
But the current zoning doesn't allow for it, right?
You could do a number of duplexes on there based on the size. I mean, it's 8 acres or something.
So this is right off of a residential area that we're gonna go ahead and put multifamily in, even though we're specifically saying as a commission that's not our goal.
So what I'm saying is there's currently a building that was formerly used as a doctor's office.
Yes, I know that.
And he wants to divide up that building into 4 separate, single-family homes on the property.
So if we pass this and we leave that, then we're getting multifamily in that none of us were even aware that we were going to be getting in, even though we have specifically said that's not our goal there and we want to keep residential, single
If y'all don't
families.
want it there, then you prevent this property owner from being able to develop the property.
Did you say 4 single family?
There you go.
I think
Planning commission.
that place has been sitting empty though forever, and I think if it's just that area with four
If there's 4 units.
Highway
units, I think
150
that's
area.
okay.
Can we restrict it to just 4 units? Because as he was saying earlier, the developer can come tell you 4 units, and then do we end up with 10? So can we specifically say how much can really be developed there? Can we really get into?
Say you want it to be single-family
So
zoning.
you're telling
So-
us that he's buying it and.
He already owns it,
He
already owns
owns it and he's gonna redo the building the structure that's already there. He's not building.
Oh, no, he's building
He
Milton.
got 7 acres behind there, but he won't put a single family behind it.
On 7 acres?
What's he gonna
Well, yeah.
put, what's he gonna put in the abandoned building? Is he gonna tear it down?
He's wanting to do four units there.
4 units there and
Yeah,
then.
that's all. He's not gonna build any more on it. He just wants to divide that one up.
So is the whole 7 acres then going to be zoned that he could do that? Is that whole brown area, his whole 7 acres? So then he can build on 7 acres, multifamily housing, and we were not aware of that because we've asked if it was existing, and we've been told over and over, these are all existing.
He has requested for these properties, while we're going through this process, to have these as multifamily so that he can develop this property.
Okay, and as a planning commission, we are saying the growth we want, and here you know that this is growth that they're wanting to do, and you are catering to the developer instead of listening to the planning commission. And we are saying we do not want 7 acres to be developed into multifamily, am I correct?
Who is the chair?
He's not wanting to put multifamily on the 7 acres. He wants to put single.
But it's zoned that he can in this new zoning map, and just like Jeff was saying, they could tell us they want 4, and next thing we know, we have 10 because we've allowed the zoning for it, and nobody was telling us the full truth about that property.
When are they coming before the planning commission with what is going to be done?
They're not, they've already made their decision, that's the problem, Don.
Decision, or is this a
Any
workshop?
decision yet. If you don't want it, just take it out.
Okay, I don't know, y'all, you. It's multifamily. They're wanting us to zone the 7 acres as multifamily, even though we've asked if those are all existing, and they've said, yes, that's all existing, but now here we have this one that's not existing, and they're saying they're gonna put multifamily on it, and it's all 7 acres is gonna allow it if we pass it as is.
So the main thing that he has asked me about and is taking this existing building that you see, actually, you don't see my cursor on there.
That's the existing building, but that's 7 acres, right?
Do you
that
mind
was
if
in-
I explain this?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So this building right here, he wants to divide it up into 4 separate, single-family townhouses, is what he wants for the property. If y'all don't want that.
So it's gonna be a multi-family building.
4 units.
In the existing
If it's
building,
not-
right?
There's 4 units in that building, it becomes a multi-unit dwelling.
Yes,
It has 4 units, it's not single homes.
it'll
It's
be,
no longer single family.
it'll be 4 single-family townhouses for this property.
Yeah,
By
but we
definition,
can't
it's
just
attached
zone half of the
single family is what you
acreage.
call
It'll
that,
be
so.
attached single-family homes.
But we,
Only that, the old doctor's office will be like the multi-townhouses, and then what he develops behind it is gonna be single family. Like.
I don't know what he's gonna do in the
Homes, or
back.
is it gonna be more townhouses?
All I know is about the front. The mayor said something about the back. If y'all just want to do the front, to allow
I'm
them.
fine with the front, just that front one.
yeah, but I don't think we can zone his property into 2 different properties. So once we zone his entire property to that, that's it.
He's got his 2 different lots.
It is
So
2
the-
parcels?
The building, the doctor's
Yeah,
office on the front is on one parcel, the larger piece is a separate parcel of land.
So,
You can divide those up.
on that map, is that separate parcel also multifamily? And can we take that and make that residential? Single family?
Right now,
What is the zone
right now it shows,
going to be?
right now it shows all, the front part and the second lot all is multifamily. If you change it, we would change it to the R20 that's adjacent to it.
Well, we could leave that front spot multi-family, because that's gonna be a multi-family building.
And then
Because
behind
there's gonna
it,
be 4 units in one dwelling. Behind it, we can do it just the regular residential so that they can't come in and build.
8,000 townhomes.
It's not that big.
That would be fine with him.
So what is the size that it has to be, the lot size for single for that back property?
Basically a half
Is it
acre,
the
20,000 square feet.
So
a
that's
lot.
approximately a half an acre.
Now, when I look
Here.
at, when
Which
I
is
look,
fine.
when I look at this property, I remember this building has been here empty for years. I mean, years.
Used to be on my.
And if y'all think that look good looking like that,
Thank you, I agree.
something's
Well,
wrong.
I'll tell you what's happened.
Well, they're gonna
I'll tell you
update it.
something's happened down there. They broke into it to start with. They broke into it, broke the windows out, got inside, went in up on the roof and things like that. Well, then they boarded it up. They broke in again and broke all the windows out inside. Now, do we want to keep that going on, or do we want to move on?
A great example.
Another use for it.
A great example is we just quote spot zoned the old satellite depot, and almost immediately it was bought, renovated, and is now occupied.
To Neighbor's Edge. It was rezoned to Neighbor's Edge.
I guess my
Right.
question is,
So if we have a guy willing to handle this
He would not be opposed to doing what you were talking about. The front, that building right there, being multifamily, and the back being single family. He wouldn't.
well, my question is, if he's willing to develop the back as residential, single family, what is the desire to have the multifamily in the front? Like, why does he?
Well, he's got to build building there, he don't want
You're not, is he
that.
tearing the building down or is he
He's there to make
repurposing?
money. He's there to make money.
Okay, all right,
And
but
he would rather not tear it down because it's gonna cost him money.
so he's not gonna tear the existing building down?
He's gonna renovate that to.
That building is going to turn into multifamily. That doctor's office,
Yes,
Yeah.
the building is going to be renovated.
yes.
Okay.
And then in the back, the way it is going to be in the thing, you need 20,000 square feet to build. So they could, if there's 7 acres back there, they can put 14 homes back there.
So how large is this front lot?
Yeah.
How large is just that front parcel, do we know?
I say it's like 2.5 and 6.5, I think, if I remember right.
Big 12 in the back.
So you're saying 4, potentially how many could actually go on there? Because like you said, they might tell us 4, but what is the actual potential of that property to have multifamily?
So it's 2.5 acres, so at townhouses, 8 units per acre, so in theory, 20.
So they could, it's potential for 20
I don't know
townhomes
that
to
it
go.
lays out, the way it lays out, I don't know that you could get that many on there, but
You gotta have individual septic tanks, because you don't have
no sewer
sewer
there.
there. So he's limited to that, so he won't be able to build 20 units
Yeah.
there, or whatever, he won't be able, he barely is gonna be able to get 4 units on.
Well, not yet, but once you start bringing in revenue from that one, there's nothing that says he can't
Well,
have
yeah,
another
it's-
building on
it's the
after
septic
that.
rules, because you have to have a
Well,
certain
you
amount
can
of
add
area.
septic tanks, that's possible, I mean, that's,
The septic tanks are required to have a certain size property to be able to get.
Right.
how many septic tanks can go on that property then?
He barely is gonna get 4 on there, he already got 1.
And each, how many septic tanks, how many different properties does that one septic tank give?
Those are all DHEC rules. I don't know those rules.
Perhaps. Okay.
I mean, you have to have at least a half an acre to do septic. So, if you think, you have 2.5 acres, maybe if all the land perks right and everything is perfect, maybe 5, if you have to do individual septic tanks.
He's barely gonna get 4 on it.
Okay.
So, okay, let's see. Residential manufactured housing. Again, it's very similar to the others, except it also allows manufactured housing park or unit, subject to the section later on that talks about the specific rules for those, just things like skirting and all those things you have to do. Accessory uses, home occupations, non-commercial agriculture, that same language as the other districts, basically the same conditional uses, same prohibited uses, and then setbacks. So for a mobile home park, you have to have a minimum of 5 acres, lot area per dwelling unit, 5,000 square feet per unit, lot width at building line, 50 feet, so think of 50 by 100-foot lot. Your setbacks on the individual lots. So, I mean, you could look at mobile home parks different ways. Some are more subdivision-based, where each is going to have its own individual parcel of land, so you're buying a lot or renting a lot, and then you have the house on it. Or you could have it more like an apartment complex, where you've just got a big 5-acre chunk, and you have to have at least this much area per unit. You make sure those all match up, where all that land is, kind of held in common, and you just are renting a home. So, but again, there's no property zone that. For anybody to do either of those, they have to go through that rezoning process and come before you and town council. So. Any questions about that?
No, sir.
Okay. So, moving to commercial. So, C1, you have C1, 2, 3, and 4. C1 is your transitional commercial. So remember from the existing land, or the future land use map, we have the corridors here that are in orange, which is where we thought you have a lot of residential uses now, but you are seeing those sort of slowly convert over to offices and commercial uses over time. So we had a transitional commercial district, which are these orange pieces here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 coming out Pine Street here. You got 1 here in this area, and then 1 here at the corner of Memorial and Highway 150, and here at Elm Street and 150, and I think that is it.
Now, what is that?
That's where those houses, where we changed that, remember Renee, because they would have been commercial and they couldn't build back there. So right across from the Hardys, those properties over there turned to that. And then there was the, another one, right? What was the other
So
one?
those are the only properties that we're gonna have that are the what was the future thing that you?
So, again, the thought is that this is a corridor that over time, you see converting over to commercial.
That's the future land use, right?
So, this is this corridor, and then basically several sections on 150 here. So Pine Street and 150.
Okay.
But what this does, instead of rezoning the whole corridor now, it allows it gives you a reason to allow a rezoning because you talked about it in your future land use map, but it doesn't give free rein to everybody all at once. They still have to, again, go through that rezoning process. It's a lower level of commercial zoning that's more compatible with what the single family that they would be next to. And so, again, you see where a couple have already done that over time. But say this property you want to convert over, you can say, okay, that seems reasonable, there's enough property there for what they want to do. The future land use map says that this is a corridor where we see this happening. That's your basis for allowing it. And so when it comes through the process, so rather than redoing it all at once, most towns have more commercial zoning than they need. They'll never use what they have because they just think, well, we want to be commercial because everybody's going to flood here and build businesses. Well, that's not really the case. It allows you to do it in a more controlled manner. So there's no questions about, whatever happens to somebody's single family house, anything like that in that district. So if you go through it, you go through the permitted uses, again, accessory uses, daycares, finance or insurance institutions, funeral homes, government offices, residential uses in accordance with the multifamily guidelines, medical and health services, a nursing home, a park, personal services, that's things like, barbershop, a florist, a photo studio, pharmacies, publicly owned building facilities or land, a professional or business office or a restaurant.
Under 315.2 permitted uses, it says residential use in accordance with RMF. I think you mean MFR.
MFR, okay. I think I changed that at one point. But the multifamily district guidelines, so. Conditional uses, you have a few more allowed uses, so there's less conditional here, but same types of things, bed and breakfast, cemeteries, churches, public utilities, schools, and sports or community recreation facilities.
Question about that one. So I know we have setbacks for like the homes and things like that, but since it is butted up directly against a residential, do we have things in place where they cannot put, I remember there's a plat out there, but how far off, like that residential zone, can we say you have to set back so far from that residential zone? Didn't we have a barrier we put in with that?
So what it says now is it's a 25-foot front yard setback, a 15-foot rear yard setback, and 7.5 on the sides. So when you compare that to, say, your R10 district,
The other thing to consider on there, if you look at your landscaping and screening on there, when you have a commercial property that's up against a residential property, the commercial property has to add additional screening that they normally would not have to do beside another commercial property.
And that carries to the transitional as well, right? So it's in that as well. It's going to have the buffer between, okay.
because the way your landscaping section works, it's not about districts, it's about uses.
Okay.
So if I have a commercial use of a certain size next to residential, I have to do this planting.
That's what I thought, okay.
If it's a bigger one, more square feet, then I have to do more, because larger impact requires more screening.
Okay, that's why I thought you had built that.
Like your single-family setbacks, the R10, 25, 20, and 10. So they're fairly close. So you have a little bit less setback, but you'd have more greenery in there that would be required for them to convert it over.
To go with
So-
that. Thank you.
All right, the C2 is your neighborhood commercial district. We talked a little bit about one piece, but you've got, like, right around here, the clock room, town hall, the post office. You have a kind of a chunk of the neighborhood C2 commercial here. And then you have this other one that we changed for those houses there. And then sort of around your central business district here is where that's located on the map right now. So that's going to allow a few more commercial uses. So it's a step up. Again, catering and food preparation businesses, churches just become a permitted use without any minimum requirements for the property size. Again, residential uses are allowed in there according to the multifamily guidelines. So conditional uses, automobile service station, no operations involving major repairs, bodywork, painting, salvage, or storage of automotive vehicles, no sale or rental of vehicles or boats. If it's, you have fuel pumps, there's setback requirements for that, and setbacks for the canopy over the fuel pumps. Grocery store, retail food store, produce stand, or meat market must not exceed 50,000 square feet of gross floor area. Neighborhood shopping center, so a multi-tenant type development, including out parcels, shall not exceed 75,000 square feet. Retail goods store, so another kind of standalone store, individual store not to exceed 20,000 square feet. Schools, service or repair business, again excluding automotive, so think like HVAC or plumber or things like that. Maximum gross floor area 15,000 square feet. Language in there about the storage of parts and machinery and equipment. And then prohibited uses again. No just standalone parking lots or decks. No outdoor storage of junk, equipment, etc. Then you have your setback requirements and all that as well. The CBD, the Central Business District, again, right downtown there. A little different, allows many of the same uses. We added garden center to that, was one that we had added. Hotels and motels. Restaurants, including Sidewalk Cafe, is listed in there.
One thing I didn't see on here, in terms of the residential dwelling, it allows for 50% on the ground floor, but it didn't say anything about the second floor.
Okay.
We're looking at possibly doing in.
Yeah, that should be in there.
Yeah. But it's just, would it allow a kind of a mixed-use, commercial ground, restaurant, that sort of thing, and then a residential apartment up above?
Right, that's what it's intended to.
Okay.
I think I got stuck on the language about the back half, and somehow that didn't get copied over, so.
Something else I've noticed too, we currently have, it looks like where the elementary school is going to be zoned as R20, and I don't see any kind of zoning. I'm trying to figure out where the Benjamin E. Mays Center is too. Do we need to set that zoning differently? Because I know that there's a potential that that school's going to have to grow. So if it's set on our map right now as R20 and they go to add additions or have to tear down,
Schools are allowed in the residential districts.
that one was, okay, so it can continue like that,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah, it's conditional because basically the conditions are that you have to have a certain acreage to make sure that you can get all the parking and the loading space, because I assume the schools are here like everywhere else where all the parents line up to pick up their kids, and you need more room off the road so you don't block up the traffic and all that in the roadway. So it's got the minimum acreage requirements, but schools are basically allowed in pretty much every district, so.
Was the recreational thing too, like the Benjamin E. Mays, is that going to be allowed under that zoning too? Because that's not a school anymore. Well, I can't figure out exactly where I'm looking at it on the map. That's not going to be, it's not going to be out of its thing either, is it?
It can't be a school every county. Is there public use allowed in that particular?
Yes, Sunny is R20. So when you look at permitted uses, publicly owned building, facility, or land
Okay,
is allowed as a permitted use by right with no other requirements listed in there, so.
okay, so they'll both be compliant.
It's in their agreement when they bought it from the school, it can never be a school ever again. One comment on the 3-17.5 lot specifications, off-street parking. One of the areas that we're looking at zoning for part of the C3 Central Business District fronts number 9. So as of right now, parking lots and are allowed to. So my question is say for instance you had the Family Dollar building or the parking lots, I agree as long as there is on-street parking or public parking in the area. And it works with West Main Street, but 9 doesn't have the same characteristics there.
What?
So, off-street parking is not required in the
C3.
Central Business District, C3.
Right.
As of right now, we're rezoning the area, which is where IGA as C3.
Right.
Until the town goes through, if the town goes through and puts in streetscape like Jonesville and puts in public parking out there, then at that point you're removing the need or removing the requirement to have any type of parking at all.
Okay, but if that's the future and they already have existing parking, why would we require parking for new?
There is,
If the future plan is to do something like Jonesville has done, which I hope it is.
yeah, I mean, and I would think that if not requiring not requiring the off-street parking in areas where there's public parking or street parking makes sense. But in the areas that don't have on-street parking or off-street public parking, I'm not sure if that makes sense. Do I make sense when I'm saying this?
I understand what you're saying, I don't know how to write that legally.
How you gonna-
Because, you're doing it on a district basis because your idea is that the district is going to develop in a certain manner. And this was the whole conversation we had about the parking requirements and that, you usually don't have that in this district because you have those things or are planning to have those things. I don't know how I can say in half the district that's zoned this way, you don't have to have off-street parking. But in this other half of the district, you have to have off-street parking, because then it's not going to develop the way that you say you want it to develop.
That's
So-
secondary, I agree, and that secondary commercial district that surrounds the, central CBD we're calling it, that requires parking, am I right?
The C2 neighborhood commercial requires parking. So this darker red color here, you have to have off-street parking.
So we're back to just requiring all
This light
parking,
pink color,
right?
no off-street parking is required. That doesn't mean they can't do it. It does
Right.
say you're not going
If
to
they need
require
it,
them
they
to do
can do
it.
it.
So
Off-street parking is required?
in the central business district, that lighter pink color right in the middle, it is not required for you. So if you're going to build a new business, it's not required for you to do parking, because the idea of the central business, right, the pink color in the middle,
Well, I was just thinking if they required it, it would contradict itself because you don't need, and there's no setback requirements, right?
right, there's no setback requirements,
They can't put
which is why there's no landscaping requirements. Now, we encourage all the landscaping you can put in, but again, when you don't have any setback requirements, you can build property line to property line.
Pavement, yeah. If we don't,
So,
we'll be requiring that whole pink area almost to be paved.
It was just a comment. If y'all don't agree, we can move on.
Well, you already knew where I stood on
What's that?
You already knew where I stood on it.
Well, it makes sense when 9 gets developed like Jonesville has their 9.
I think we're closer to having on-street parking, we could get a line machine out there and make it like tomorrow versus us getting full of so many businesses.
And our transportation planner, Jake, would tell you no.
Well,
That you cannot.
right, well, yeah, it's a what, a state road or county road?
Yes,
Yeah.
state road, yeah.
What I'm saying is the cost to develop that versus us having so much parking. I mean, we got acres and acres of asphalt. Half of that pink is asphalt.
That's fine.
I just think
It was
it's,
just a comment.
How far down number 9 are you thinking for, because the commercial doesn't run that far, right? So, but are we thinking there's going to be more further down? Is that what you mean? Like, because obviously, there's really not parking because it's all residential further down. But what do you mean by, like, it's not conducive on number 9? Can you give me an example of what you mean? I'm trying to understand what you're saying too, but I don't.
If anything develops along 9, right now, on the north side, if anything developed on, say, for instance, the property where, next door to Hardee's, if it ended up developing, it does not require on-site or off-site parking, which is
off-street parking.
Off-street parking. So all the parking that's around Hardee's right now is off-street private parking for that business. My comment on this was that in an area like West Main Street, that makes sense, where there is on-street parking on West Main Street, and people can park along the side of the road there. So there's no need to have parking of your own on your property. It's
So-
kind of like in a downtown setting. You shouldn't have to have off-street parking in a downtown setting. People park along the street and they park in public parking lots. In a place like W.O. Easdale Boulevard, saying, well, people are just going to park on the street. Well, you can't park on the street on W.O. Easdale Boulevard. Now, I think the plan would be at some point to make 9 Pine Street look more like, have you seen Jonesville look, where it's the road's a little bit smaller in there, there's parallel parking, the sidewalk's a little bit larger. I think that's the direction we want to go. And when you get to that point, it would make sense that you do the same thing, you do on-street parking and you do public parking, and then all the businesses just put their building in and that's it, like a traditional downtown.
So we're not going to be able to have the off-street parking on number 9, you're saying? Is there a reason that, because you have public
Yes, you
easement,
can.
right? Is there a reason that you're not?
So 9's a state road.
Okay.
And so you have to get approval from DOT to do that. So you have to submit plans, has to meet all the state requirements, you have to go through it. Jake can tell you more about this than I can, but you have to go through all their process. And when we did that in Anderson, they made us take the road out of the state maintenance system. So they said, you can do this streetscape and do the on-street parking, but you need to take over the road. So we will not be responsible for maintaining it in the future. So I don't know if they would say, I mean, every county, they treat everybody differently, but depending on where you're at. But I don't know if you want to take on that expense, potential future expense, because anytime the road needs to be repaved or repaired, that would then become the town's responsibility to do that, so.
Can we possibly do something like, Thomas is saying there's a lot of parking lot down there, there's no sense in trying to use it. Can we say, say one of those buildings, how Walgreens went out, it's out of business so long, can we say, okay, well, now your parking lot has become our municipal parking lot? No?
The town could be takings, you'd have to buy it from them, so,
We could
You'd buy your
potentially lease it.
long-term lease
I mean,
the
we'd have
property.
to-
yeah.
Okay.
Because as of right now, Tom makes a really good point that you have plenty of parking all along 9. The problem is you have 0 public parking along 9. At any point, any of those property owners can say, only customers of these businesses can park here and no one else.
Right, yes.
And if they do that, then you end up putting in a restaurant at the vacant lot where Hardee's is, and no off-street parking is required, you don't put it there, and You just have a really long way to walk because none of the property.
No. You'll see in multiple towns all over the place, agreements between businesses. They'll lease or have an agreement with their neighbor. We can use these 5 spaces for our
It's just a
little place.
comment, no, if,
There's like, well, no, I'm not, I just want to explain it so that people know the options. There's 100 different options on how to solve these little inconveniences. I think it's going to be a lot harder to go backwards and push the asphalt back than if 9 blows up with businesses like we're talking about, to where there's so little parking that people are fighting over spaces. It's going to be, that's great. We fix the road then. We have the tax dollars. I don't think the road comes later.
the only comment was, I didn't know if it could be set up, and if Jim doesn't know, the comment was if there is on-street parking or public parking on the block. I'm not sure, can you, if you can't do that, then it doesn't matter.
You just, again, treating, 2 people in the same district in a different manner.
You just said that.
So, well,
Just say.
no.
Moving on.
So what's allowed in this area? Because I have a question. This
And-
commercial,
The C3 Central Business District,
whatever,
if you go to page 3-39,
yeah, the Lake Bank.
yeah, the 3-39 has all the permitted uses. So,
So are warehouses and storage buildings allowed there? Because I think I read it wasn't.
correct.
I
So,
think the old ordinance says that it wasn't.
so you can do, as a conditional use, you could do wholesaling and distribution, but storage of inventory, parts, materials, machinery, etc., must be within a fully enclosed building, or if outdoors, within a minimum 6-foot-high, completely site-obscuring fence or wall. But that's a wholesale or distribution. It's not just a storage building, or it's not storage units. That would have to be an industrial, in one of the industrial districts. So, yes, I mean, because the whole point of a downtown central business district is you don't want uses that aren't drawing people all the time. So that's why you don't want residential on the ground floor in the front half of the building. You want a retail space or an office or some other public space that's generating traffic, because you're close together, you want to go from...
Because that Old Family Dollar over there has been being used as, I think, a distribution, but that building could be better utilized as a retail space, so why are we allowing that?
Well, I don't know what your current ordinance says about what can happen in there. And so if that building is in this, it can continue because it's grandfathered in until they stop doing it or something happens. But if somebody were to, again, I want to scrape this clean and do something new here, they have to follow this, and they could not do just a storage facility, so.
Could we make it where the transitional business district did require the parking as opposed to, because I think that would resolve going down number 9. So every time if you have to back it up, then you have that transitional zone and they would be required to have 1 or 2 parking spots.
All the zoning district, all the commercial districts except for the CBD require off-street parking.
Okay, so then that should resolve the problem going down number 9 then, where they would have to,
Yeah, so the question is really if somebody were to go on 9 now and build something new, because the existing stuff all has parking. So if somebody were to build something new, they would not technically be required, that's on 9 in that CBD district, they would not be required to put in their own parking. And then,
but the ones that are already in that downtown, like the only ones that they have their parking, right? Like
right,
that's-
all the
okay.
existing ones have
Not
parking.
banning parking. They're allowed to have as much parking as they want. We're
Right,
not
I'm
banning.
not saying you
We're
can't
just
have
not
it, it's just saying
you
the
have
town's
to.
not gonna make you put in parking.
But the
So,
transitional zone would require you
yes,
to.
everything except the CBD, right downtown.
Right at what you can.
All right, so if you move on to the C4 general commercial, that's the bright red along 176. This is your single-family house to Walmart district. You can pretty much have anything that's not industrial here. You can have car and boat and RV dealerships, boarding houses, car washes, catering, churches, cultural and community centers, daycares, banks, funeral homes, government offices, grocery stores, hospital, hotels, residential, nursing homes, parks or playgrounds, personal services, restaurants, retail. Under conditional uses, an automobile service station. This allows a higher level of service, so operations involving major repairs, bodywork, painting, salvage, etc., must be conducted within a fully enclosed building. Storage of vehicles or boats for reasons other than sale must be within a fully enclosed building or a minimum 6-foot-high, completely site impervious fence or wall. Fuel pumps, setbacks for that. You can have cell towers, you can have kennels, and then public utility substations. So again, this is going to allow the most commercial that you have of any district in town. That's why it's on the major traffic route through the community. And so you can just do more there in those districts, things that you wouldn't necessarily want adjacent to a otherwise single-family neighborhood.
Which residential lot do they have to follow?
Same thing, the multifamily, all the commercial districts say the same thing, or, excuse me, yes, all the commercial districts, except for CBD, say the same thing when it comes to residential. They all are allowed as conditional, the condition is that they follow your multifamily guidelines.
Okay, so we have, all the red there could potentially just turn into multifamily if it wanted to, like it can potentially.
Now, I don't think that's necessarily the highest and best use for that land. Somebody can put a commercial in there, something commercial in there that's, the property owner could sell it for more, that somebody can make more money, so it's conceivable somebody could build an apartment complex there, but I don't know that I think that's likely in the near future, but.
And if they did, that's a big enough spot where we would do one of the planned development type things.
Well, if you just want a standard apartment complex at a maximum of 10 units an acre, then yes, they could just do the zoning that's in place now. If they want mixed use, or if they want, more density, they want to bargain for more density or something, then you would do PDD or your flexible review district, So
could we, is there any way that we would require that if they did decide to do multifamily there, since we might not be able to get the chance to do the planned development, can we put in now where the entrance and exit of that would have to be off the main highway, where there couldn't be multiple ins and outs coming in through the town roads, where the main in and out to those kind of things would have to be off of 176?
That really is language that's better suited for your land development regulations, where it talks about access to roadways and things like that, and you follow the counties now. And so you'd have to look at what the county language is on that, unless you adopted your own. And so, I don't know specifically what they're saying, but a lot of times if it triggers a certain amount of development, they'll have to do a traffic study. Like in Campobello, when we did theirs, I think it was whenever a development hit over 200 average trips per day, they would have to do a traffic study before it was built to determine where the best access points were. The county is likely more lenient than that, I would guess. But that's really more of, those access type questions are really more for land development regs than they are for zoning, so.
Can the town take that from the county and make its own decisions?
You can, you'd have to write a set of land development regulations, and then you would be in charge of enforcing them somehow. So that's road construction, water lines, sewer lines. Some of that's not going to be yours because of the Spartanburg water, but you'd have to contract with somebody to inspect roads and things like that rather than the county doing it. So unless you could get some agreement that the county would still enforce your LDRs, so, which they may or may not do. So.
You're on C4 right now?
Yes.
Under 3-18.5 lot specifications, just a clerical thing. Off-street parking and loading, and you said C section 4.3, it also used to say C section 4.4. 4.4 is loading.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions about the C4 district? Okay, so the next two districts are the industrial districts. You have I-1, which is light industrial, which is the light gray color here, again along 176. And then you have I-2, which is heavy industrial, which is all the quarry property here. This is, I don't know if it's New Power or whoever built the, sort of the not generating station, but their facility over here. And then this is sort of a big junkyard. There's a lot of junk cars in the back.
Mittens.
So that gets known
Mittens.
to I-2 as well, because I-2 would be the district that had a lot of junkyards, so I-1, you can see, you know, again, agricultural farm, automotive service station or repair facility, bulk products, crematorium, daycare center, fairgrounds, kennels or animal hospitals, light manufacturing or production facility, parks, playgrounds, community recreation, parking lots, decks, garages or motor pools, offices, public utilities, publicly owned building, restaurant, retail, storage facility, warehouse, or wholesale facility. So think your mini warehouses, larger storage facilities could go in a place like that. Conditional uses, cell towers, single-family residential, but only incidental to a permitted use such as a caretaker, watchman, or security officer. Tattoo parlors, and you've got some prohibited uses in there again. The I-2 heavy industrial is going to allow, you know, some other uses as well. So the gravel pits, quarries are allowed in there. Under conditional uses, the auto salvage, wrecking, or junkyard, freight terminals are added in there as well. And then prohibited uses.
Well, you can't in your adult facility.
And then all your setback information. So any questions about the industrial districts or the language?
Is it, and just a curiosity, was under, it had light manufacturing and production facility, and then also storage and warehouse. Does distribution then fall under that too?
So distribution, I think, you know, you could look at that as wholesale facility,
Okay.
because you're wholesaling and distributing, so I would have that under that.
The only other thing, and I'm not sure if you've seen this in other communities, is for light industrial versus heavy industrial, it says some stuff about obnoxious sound and smell and that sort of thing. Is there any thought to putting in an actual sound decibel amount on there?
I have not seen any in anybody's zoning ordinance that addresses that. A lot of towns have noise ordinances separately as part of their town code.
Okay.
I don't know of any specifically that have that in the zoning language. Which is not to say it couldn't be in there, I'm not aware of any.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, it covers the, you know, prohibited uses, the offensive, obnoxious operation. And there's fumes, gas, noise, odor, smoke, vibration, that sort of thing, that's all in there.
Right.
Is there a measurable fact to smell too? Because that stuff wouldn't hold up if you took it, like, you have to have something probably like that for it to hold up in a court.
I think a reasonable person that sees is just obnoxious smell. I mean, if you're next door to this property and it's an awful smell and it's not like subjective, like only one or two people are having this issue, but most people in this area, like all the residents are having some issue with this. That would be obnoxious.
So how does the enforcement end work on that? So if it is obnoxious and we do decide that is, what is the,
Until they correct it, it'd be a $500 fine, $500 a day fine.
is that we have that in our ordinance?
That's your general
That's
language.
your general language.
Okay,
Yeah. It's the same thing for code enforcement, and this would be a violation of your code.
okay.
And so the town could do a $500 a day, a fine, until it's fixed.
Okay.
You write that down, won't you?
Anything else about industrial? Okay. So outdoor recreation district, that's the green areas on the map. And you got the river preserve up here, and then you got all the Packard Millington property through here. So, 1 and 2.
It's easier to see it on there.
So a lot of this property is hard to develop because you have slope issues, you've got floodplain issues. And so we created the outdoor recreation district for those areas. A lot of outdoor uses that we talked about before, campgrounds, nature preserves, related commercial uses, equestrian, golf courses, private recreation, public or commercial uses such as playgrounds, splash pads, sports facilities, public marinas, etc., public utilities, restaurants or cafes that are accessory, retreats, sporting and recreation camp, and uses that are strictly passive in nature, such as walking trails, observation points, open spaces, observation towers, and boardwalks. So thinking, so if you recall back when we were talking about the comp plan, where they talked about the kayak launches, and they talked about the zip lines, and they talk about parks down in that flats area, all of that would fall within the guidelines here, for this district. It does also include, say, the Victor Park property, which used to be a subdivision, which in the future, if it ever became a subdivision again, somebody would probably cut that out of this green area and rezone it back to a residential district or PDD or something like that. But it protects it from just other types of development which may not be suitable there. And again, Packard Milliken owns most of that property, and so you have that extra step of having to go through their process and their standards for what a development on their property is going to look like. So there are no conditional uses, and then again a list of prohibited uses in that area.
I know it says no adult entertainment, and we have listed as campground, and I know Milliken would be involved. I don't think that they would allow it, but do we have to specify that it can't be like a nudist retreat or something?
Well, if you have,
do we have to say that in our language, or is that?
well, adult uses, do you have a sexually oriented business ordinance that restricts it here or anything?
No, I've never seen anything in it.
It'd still be public and decent.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's some general state language that addresses it, but basically, you don't allow adult uses anywhere in the community.
Okay.
Which you can get away with because you're small enough that a reasonable person could go someplace just outside the town. And so it'd probably be good to adopt an ordinance, either, a town ordinance addressing it in some manner at some point in the future maybe, but right now everything just says it's not allowed anywhere in town. So, and then a nude beach would be, like he said, public indecency. I'm sure you have something in the code that addresses that, so.
There was a group that wanted to do that in Anderson County. You remember that, right?
Yeah, I don't think we want that here.
I don't remember that.
There was a group that wanted to open up a nudist farm.
Someone told me there's a nudist campground somewhere in South Carolina. I was like, that's disgusting.
All right, so the last two districts are your planned development district and your flexible review district. Very similar. The planned development district is basically a creature of state law, and so by state law, it has to be mixed use. So some combination of, say, commercial and office, or residential and commercial, or something like that. Whereas your flexible review district can be a single use, it can be just multifamily, or just commercial, or just single family. There's a little difference in terms of, PDD has to be a minimum of 5 acres. I think the flexible review district is a minimum of 1.
With the PDD,
No size limit for the flexible review.
with the PDD on here, does it have to be a commercial and residential, or can it be R10s and R5s and R20s?
What I would say is that under PDD, because it's mixed use, it cannot be just single family. But I think it could be single family and townhouses, because those are mixed uses, multifamily and single family.
But it could be in the flexible.
Could be in a flexible review
Okay.
district, could be just single family. and say I want to do, some places have like cottage homes. So, like in Anderson, we've got Cobblestone East and Cobblestone West. And so they're designed sort of for older people, empty nesters. They're small houses. They're pushed to one side of the lot. They're like 4,000 square foot lots. And you would do something like that maybe under a flexible review district, where you think it's reasonable to allow that in a limited fashion to meet a certain market demand. So, but again, they had to apply for rezoning, they had to get all this.
That's what I'm talking about with you.
Yes, well, question for that too, like is this an actual, like we would have to zone it specifically to
Yes.
that? Okay, can you zone things that way without somebody approaching you
No,
to do it?
because
Okay.
it's a two-step process. And so you didn't, basically the last thing you do is the actual zoning part, because they're gonna have to come up with a statement of intent. What I make them do personally when I dealt with them is make them draft a document very much like your zoning language, because their statement of intent will have everything from, hey, we kind of want to do this, we were looking at this for density, but then we're looking at this for roads and signage and all this. But they need to put that in a more concise document to help Patrick out for when he's going to enforce it. And so you're adopting the document
Like a
even
legal-
more than the
like a
plat.
legal
The plat doesn't
contract.
matter. Everybody wants to see the plat and what the layout's going to look like, but what's important is the language.
Yes.
Because there might be 5 different ways you could design it and meet the language that you've approved. And so they could say, well, yes, we said it was going to be laid out like this, but we decided we wanted to do it differently, and it still meets that language, you have to let them do it. And so the document with that verbiage in there about density, lot sizes, setbacks, you can talk about landscaping, signage, you can require sidewalks and certain lighting. I mean, you can pretty much bargain anything that you want to in one of those documents. And so you're going to use it to create something that maybe is a little more dense than you like, but maybe it's because I'm doing sort of a cluster, and so the lots are going to be small, but I'm going to preserve this extra open space over here. And it's going to be preserved for the community. And so you're making trade-offs with something like that.
So with that plan development district, when that does come up, say that we do enter this agreement, is that another one of those things? Who does it go to? Does it come back to the planning commission?
Planning Commission first, council.
Okay, and then we have to, so we would see all that, we would also approve it. Can we attach it where they would be required? I know it's not in there now, but can we put it where it would be required for this plan development district in that commercial stuff that's up on 176? Can we require anything in that? where they could do a-
You're bargaining everything from, you're in a conversation with the developer. He's going to say, I want to do this. You're going to say, well, we would like to see this. And you just go back and forth until you got something that you can live with and they can live with.
Well, do you know which area I'm talking about?
I mean, you're in control of the PDD, and so you can leave it, so the way it is right now, and then they want to do that. So the developers want to be able to have something, and I'm bringing up on your computer right now, I probably shouldn't tell you where I live, but I live in this neighborhood here, and there are some homes that are out here that are single-family homes with larger lots, and there are some lots that are very narrow along this big great lawn area. And it's different types of people are looking for different types of stuff. And it would enable you to, I believe this is correct, that you, not a PDD, but the other one.
I mean, those are all single family?
These are all single family.
Yeah, so if it's
But the
just
lot
single
size is
family,
different size.
I mean, that would be FRD.
That's,
So, because it's single use, the lot sizes.
PDD is different uses. This is
Right, mixed
FRD.
use, right. And that's why you have both, because there are reasonable projects that aren't going to meet the letter of your current law that could still be good projects for the town, good projects for your citizens, Because you have people who don't want a half-acre lot, because they don't want to cut grass, they're old, they're just, kids are gone, they want a little tiny lot, but they like Pacolet and they still want to live here. So maybe you do another type of development that fits that market. They got money because the kids are gone. They got money to spend at your businesses, but I don't want to cut grass. I don't need a half-acre lot that I'm going to have to spend all my time doing that. I want to go on a cruise and just live in my little tiny house. And there may be a place for that, but they have to bargain all of that with you for that to happen here.
Well, and that's what, I guess my question is, because that's one of the things with that commercial stuff that we have out on 176 that does allow the multifamily. It's not that I'm opposed to having multifamily there, but I think that land would be better multi-use, like where can we require that red commercial district that if anybody goes to develop there, that they do have to present a PDD or PPD there for that specific, out here on 176. Because what I don't want to see, and I know, again, I'm coming back, I know people don't want this, that whole entire red district, a developer comes and says, well, I'm just going to go ahead and put all multifamily in. And I mean, that's several acres if I'm right. Is that all like those are single properties or I'm not sure exactly if that's all one property, if it would be sold all in one chunk.
It's multiple properties through there.
There's some that are 45 acres, that are some that are 15 acres, that are...
Yeah, because you're talking a 45-acre lot, that's a lot of multifamily homes that, again, if it's a possibility.
That's a major road. I mean, that's that kind of density, that would be maybe a logical place to do it because that's away from the rest of the town. It's on a high-traffic road.
And I agree with that 100%, but I would rather, like I said, can we make it so that in that specific district, we would require PPD there because you don't just put in multifamily there. Like in addition to that, you have to put a park in so that now all of these families have somewhere required for green space that these children in these places would have that.
You can bargain for those things in the PDD. I don't think you can make them do, because you can't zone it a PDD up front because you have no rules to put in place. Because every PDD could have a completely different set of rules. And so you can't just zone it PDD without real development taking place there. And so I don't think,
Can we add it as into that section though? Like, can we put it, I know we can't zone it that way, but if we go back to that specific, commercial?
you can take multifamily out of that as an allowed use. If you really don't want multifamily there, I think would be the way to do that. I don't know that you can say, we're zoned this, but if you do X, you have to get it rezoned, even though it says you can do it in here. So,
Well, not that you have to get it rezoned, but that it has to have a plan so that it's not just one building on top of the other. You have green space put in between and things like that. And I don't know how the rest of you feel. I would say take the multifamily off of it completely, but if we are going to have any, that it makes sense to have it there on 176. Anybody else?
On 176.
Yes,
It's not in the town.
But
So,
do you know how many houses you could put on 45 acres?
in the areas where everybody was talking about earlier, about the density and all that stuff earlier.
right.
But you're talking about a different spot.
Yeah, but 45 acres, Diane, 45 acres. Do you know how many townhomes could go on that area? And you are still right along number 9 and stuff, that's still up against a residential zone.
That's fewer residents that are gonna be down in the Mill Hill and the downtown. If you wanna keep them on 176 where they can commute easily to work, then you don't have to worry about them buying up all the infill lots. So you can keep your, not in my backyard mentality for the Mill Hill. It's a term, it's a NIMBY term. Have you heard of it?
No, but you've been saying rude things.
Some of those lands are not even...
Well, like what?
Right.
The first time I came in, I asked the question, I was like, well, you came in great.
So,
I'm asking.
There's
how
a
do you
term
feel
in
about
development called a NIMBY.
45 acres having that.
Really have something else in there.
This is a perfect spot for it, it's on 176.
I'm not
Doesn't
saying
have-
not to put it, I'm saying to be more restrictive about,
So what's
you
the
can't
problem?
just put 45 acres of
I think you're being
multifamily there.
great.
Because I've had it up to here with it.
with the RNF on here, if you ended up moving it to a conditional use, it would have to be before the BZA, is that correct?
No.
You're cussing now?
So it only says, only if it specifically says
Okay.
it has to go to BZA, does it have to, the conditional use have to go to the BZA. So all it
Don't worry
says,
about your automotive shop.
Okay, calm down.
Like I said, I'm not opposed to having multifamily on 176, but you're gonna have a whole town in an uproar if somebody develops multifamily on 45 acres, and we don't have anything that says we can stop that, so.
The economy is determine that anyway.
So,
I mean,
what you need to look at,
If they don't have the economy and don't have the need for them, they're not gonna build it.
so what it says in here, I mean,
It's only 45 acres.
if you go back to the multifamily section, the 3-25.
Okay.
So what it says in there is, you can only do 10 units an acre, which for multifamily is not dense at all. I mean, we had a 10 and an 18 unit per acre, we had two different districts, and every multifamily developer wanted more than 18 units per acre. So, 10 units an acre for multifamily development is not very dense. The other part of that is, when you look at maximum impervious surface area, only 65% of the total property can be impervious. So under buildings, under roads, under parking, so over a third of the property at the very minimum has to be some sort of green space. That's just your standard rules. So, and then you have, setbacks between buildings,
So on that 45, with the allowances that have, on 45 acres, how many could be built?
I mean, in theory, 45 acres would allow you 450 units. I think
I know
you're
that
never
that's
gonna
not
get that,
likely,
though.
but I don't think that's what we're trying.
The third off there, you're looking closer to 300 units.
Well, your density is still based on the total acreage. So if you can, you may have to build up rather than out, but again, a lot of multifamily developers aren't even going to look at this because it's not enough density for them. So I don't know that my concern about it being developed as multifamily is as strong as your concern is, just based on what I've seen from multifamily developers in other areas. And then it's the town talking to the property owners, we want to see this developed commercial, how can we help you do that? Let us know if somebody comes to you with plans so we can, be in a conversation with that about what this is going to look like. And I think the 45 acre piece is light industrial, not the commercial piece there, but
When the industrial doesn't allow for that.
Correct.
The industrial, that would
Right.
specifically be for industrial purposes.
Right. So, it is certainly possible you could see somebody develop that as multifamily. Depending on the cost of the land there, I don't know that I see it as likely, so, for what that's worth. So,
Well, when they run out of other places to build, they're gonna keep
Right.
looking. That's, when you're out of other places, then they're gonna keep looking.
Right.
And I don't know, I'm not the only one to make that decision. I say we take it off, but
And
that's.
they do build on top of each other, they be real close together.
Yep.
It would make more sense for them to build outside of the town of Packlet and not deal with any restrictions at all.
Yeah, by all means,
So
build them in.
that's what I'm saying, is the likelihood they're going to do that in this location is,
But Spartanburg's running out of places, so what happens when Spartanburg does, but ours still allows that? That's where I'm at, because, they just built those, or they triplexes and duplexes, they're just right down there by the truck station on 176. It's not that far that we're getting those kind of developments already, so, we're just down the street, we're the next land before Union. So, we can hope they go to Union and bypass us, but.
No, that's still a lot of places.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm not for that, and most of the people I don't, but I'm not the only one here.
Push it for commercial.
Yeah, I'm all for commercial there, I would love to, but are we gonna allow that multifamily, I guess?
so you're not okay with apartment complexes in this area?
No, I think we should remain a rural town, I think that's our goal, I don't think we're trying to urbanize, and that's urbanization, that's just, people aren't interested in that. We have the urbanization 10, 15 minutes away, and that's the consistent conversation I've had with other people that I've talked to in the town. We're happy to go 10, 15 minutes away, and then come home to quiet. But, I don't know, I know y'all are having other
The
conversations.
suburbs are not rural. Single-family suburbs and cul-de-sacs, that's not rural. So that's what we're gonna get.
we either concentrate it in an appropriate place on a highway or downtown, or we just have a single-family home covering everything. 'Cause we
I'm
can't tell
about-
people not to move here.
I'm about making it a residential agriculture. Like, I would love to see the 5-acre lots go out there and start seeing people homestead out there. I'd love that. I'd love to have.
I think they
I mean,
do
there's a
that
lot of
in
people
town.
moving here looking for that. Greer's got large properties like that. There's a lot of people keeping horses, doing equestrian things. I'd like to encourage those people to come here. They're running out of big spots to do that because all of Spartanburg County and everywhere else allows dense building. Well, let's get the ones that want to contribute something like that, give them somewhere to go.
I think that's something you do in the county, not inside a town limit, if that's the
Yeah,
type of
people who are looking to
living
do
you
that sort
want.
of thing are not looking to come to a more restrictive area with higher taxes.
Well, I agree, but if they're left in the county and it's all been broken down into small pieces, but we're saying, here, we got you a 5-acre lot and you can keep livestock and whatever on it, it might look better to them than being right next to a housing development because they got their 5 acres, but then right next door, everybody's complaining about their stuff.
And you'd voluntarily do that and pay more taxes for that?
I would. I mean, I would. You gonna come pick up my trash and everything too? I mean, yeah, why not?
I don't know if we'd have any services, we wouldn't have enough residents to actually
If
pay
they're
for
in the town limits,
services.
they have to pay, they have to cover them. They
No.
pay taxes to
No,
be
they
in the town
can't, because we'd
limits.
have, if everyone's on a 5-acre lot, you've got so few residents, unless you're,
But they're in the town provides the
yes,
police
but
and
the
the
town has a
trash.
finite amount of land, so if you divide all this up into 5 acres, you're what, fraction of residents fit here, unless you expand the town by 10 times its size.
But why, what is, I'm trying to understand your argument for more residents, because the rest of us are saying less residents, why more? Like, what is,
Because you can't stop what is it, like 12 people a day to Spartanburg County, 14 people a day? You can't stop people from coming here. We're either surrounded by suburban hell, or we kind of concentrate the people that want to live in something dense. We give them that opportunity, and then we don't have to have them spread out over hundreds of acres. Those people have to live somewhere.
I mean, sure, they do. They've already lived somewhere, they're just moving here now, and we can say, no, we're not gonna allow that
We
density.
can't, that's over-regulation. We've got private parcel sales. People own their property, they can sell it to someone that can build a house. Unless you just want to
Can we
ban,
limit it out there to an acre or 2 acres per lot? Can we limit it that way?
What are you talking
Like
about?
everywhere else where it's residential, can we limit that to that each house has to be on 2 acres?
Everywhere
And
else.
everywhere else, it's 20,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet.
They don't wanna make that
Can we make those
residential.
areas that, if it has single-family houses on there, it has to be on 2 acres?
So it'll be R80, all properties or what?
Whatever this is that we're talking about on 176.
176.
The idea is that they want it to be commercial, and I am of the opinion that I think we should encourage a more rural setting.
Farming.
And we should encourage farming. But I guess that's not gonna bring enough money in. And I, like myself and most of the people I talk to, we're not worried about money coming in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have a major highway. You have a US highway that runs adjacent to your town. I don't know that that's 5-acre lots is appropriate development on this main corridor that comes through your town. So, I mean, that is your opportunity for higher value, development, commercial development. So, I mean, money is important to the town. If you want to keep having services, I mean, everybody's prices are going up, then, the town's collecting the same amount of money, so you have two choices, because it's costing the town more money every year to provide services, and so you can either raise taxes, or you can bring in more development that'll help pay for that. A 5-acre lot, you take all that and make it 5-acre lots, that's I think gonna be detrimental financially versus whether that could be commercial there.
I mean, I understand, like, commercial does drive the buck. Like, I get that.
I mean, in that location specifically is what I'm talking about. I mean, that should be your, Clemson Boulevard, your
WOE's
Boulevard. I mean, that's where you concentrate the traffic, it keeps it away from the rest of your single-family properties, and all that high-density, high-traffic areas out there, and not in the rest of the town, so.
Well, I get that, I'd like to push it back further. I'd like to have that residential so that we don't have a WOEZ Boulevard right there. I don't want that, and I don't know anybody that I've talked to that does. I don't know anybody that's like it.
But we have to realize people are coming, because I've noticed that a lot more people have came to Packard in the last 3 years than they have in a long time. And so they are looking for places to live.
So there's not a place to rent hardly in Packard. Nothing to rent in Packard.
That's exactly right.
Nothing.
So,
You can't find a thing to rent in
that's
Packard.
growth. And if they can do it on 176, y'all don't want them here in this area.
I agree.
So 176 is better than, I mean, if you don't want them here and you don't want them on 176, you just don't want them,
Yeah, exactly. They just want to
right?
ban growth. I mean, the town's going to dry
I
up.
mean,
It's already been
I
struggling
don't
for
understand
decades.
why we have to accommodate a spot for people that are leaving places where they didn't fight back in their own states or their own places to make sure that their cost of living didn't go up, and now we have them coming here and saying, provide an area for us, when we allowed it to get out of control where we were by voting in the wrong people, by doing things that didn't block that stuff. I mean, that's why we have an influx of people coming to South Carolina. They're escaping. I've asked people, I'm out blunt, I'm like, why are you moving here?
We're not making this political. Look, we're not making this political.
What jobs? But
We're just
you
trying
have to put in the plants then, is that what we want? Do we want a bunch of plants? I mean, but it doesn't have to, that's the thing, that's why we have the ability to
Build a
zone.
wall around it.
You can't be an
The
island.
problem is you're
Okay.
dealing with a lot of other people making decisions. And so Greenville's running out of good industrial sites, so they're coming to Spartanburg County now. And then they cheer all those announcements, but then, yay, 2,000 jobs, where are all those people going to live?
Yep.
And so, I mean, they're coming, whether, it's not a question whether they're coming, it's a question of how you deal with the people that are going to come here. So,
And you can't keep people from coming.
But you can. If we say you can't
And
do
I think it's
it.
selfish to try.
but again, I think, it goes back to, as a town, you're growing or you're dying.
Right.
There's no static, because if you're just static, you're not bringing any more money, nothing else new is happening. I mean, how many of you have children that you want to stay in this area? At the very least, you gotta build housing for them, so that's some growth, and that's just your own innate growth, never mind people coming from other areas. So you always have to have some growth in your community just to maintain the level of services that you have now. Because again, you're facing inflation, I am too, and so is the town. But if the town's not bringing any new income, they have to either lower services, charge you more taxes, or find a way to bring in other revenue sources just to keep even.
And the seniors can't afford higher taxes.
And so, if you have a corner that can attract,
Taxes are going up.
Let's just be all retirement communities.
But what you don't understand is when you have massive growth, because this has happened, and this happens in other states, and I've lived there, you end up having your water bill goes up, your electric bill goes up, all of the services go up. Duke Energy can't even provide the services out by Woodruff right now. They're having to build additional nuclear plants. Do we want more of that? Do we want more of that? Because that's consumerism, and at some point we have to say, we're not going to continue to grow this bubble, but I guess we'll do it till it bursts.
The people that are looking for agricultural 5-acre lots are not coming to a city to do that.
But we're not a city, that's my point.
They are
municipality.
They do not come to municipalities to do that. They stay at the county.
But why?
the land's cheaper.
Is that because the municipality, most likely,
Because the land is cheaper and there's less taxes that are on there.
Okay.
And there's less restriction on there.
I understand, but how many of these municipalities even offer that to them, where they have 5 acres lots offered to them in that? Because everywhere else is saying, dense up, dense
I'm going
up.
to say some stuff that may not be pleasant. Most people are not like you. They are not looking to homestead in the town of Packlet. They're not looking for that.
Then why on all my groups that I'm in homeschooling are people looking for that? There's a ton of them, and they're saying, I'm moving from such and such. I'm looking to such and such.
And they'll go into the county to do that.
My
Okay.
question is, where are you from?
I'm from Pennsylvania.
Okay, so if we do this, you would not have been able to come to Pack.
No, that's not true. My husband's from here.
Oh, your husband's from here?
Yes, I wouldn't have come here
But see, it's,
otherwise.
so you're trying to block other people.
I am trying to block dense growth because in Pennsylvania, I lived at Penn State and I watched what happened.
I know.
And what happens when you get dense growth, everybody thinks, oh, we're bringing more money into the town. What you're asking for is, and we have, how many of us have come from Pennsylvania? There's 3 of us. It's not a joke. Your property taxes go up. Your car taxes go up. Your water goes up. So what you might pay in your millage tax that's only allowed to go up a little bit is getting paid way more in your property taxes.
But if you're allowed to come, even though you married somebody from Packlet, then we're not asking just the whole, the whole world to come to Packlet. And we're not even planning on the whole world coming to Packlet. But the thing is, we're just talking about one area on 176.
Right, that could potentially have 400 to 500 multifamily units on it.
Let's get back to this, I mean, we're not gonna settle this, I mean, you got your ideas, everybody else got their own ideas, let's move on. I mean, we can talk this over, all
So we
night
can go
long.
home. We got one more, hey, listen.
Yeah, I was just saying that, as of right now, it looks to me like all the people that live in Packlet go somewhere else to shop, go somewhere else to eat, go somewhere else to buy clothes, and we're losing out on some of that. And most of these people work out of our area. So if we could get some industry out there on 176, then probably it would help our unemployment rate in the town of Packlet. And, then we might want to have some more houses built to accommodate the people who are working in this area. But right now, we're just a place to spend the night. We're not a place to spend money or the industries or those stores or whatever to get tax from them. And we're letting all that go to Union, to Gaffney, to Spartanburg.
That's because so many things have opened here that people here don't support them. How many restaurants have opened that people in the town don't even go to?
But you don't-
People here support what's put here
Yeah,
before you
we
think
can't
about
decide
putting
not-
everything else here.
But you need more people to support it.
But the people
I think you need
that are
both.
here don't support it.
If you've got more people there, they will, the thing is you can't force people. And in other towns, restaurants aren't successful because they force their town people to go and shop there and go and eat there and all that kind of stuff. You need a certain critical mass to make it work. It's the reason the bank's not here, and the reason the pharmacy's not here. There's not enough critical mass to support that.
That's right.
More stuff is gonna be closing, especially if.
You've got to have more people out there.
Well, I
Your-
realize
your-
that,
your
but in our
population is
comprehensive
dwindling.
plan, we sent out the survey, asked people what they wanted. They wanted restaurants. Every single restaurant closes down because people don't support them.
So there must.
And part of supporting a business like that, especially a restaurant, is when they don't do something the way that you like it, you have to tell them. I like it done this way, just like EJ's. I don't like my sandwich cut into 4 pieces. I told them, don't cut my sandwich into 4 pieces.
There are a lot of reasons that businesses go out, and the majority of reasons that people.
But that was one of the big things, was people wanted more restaurants. They don't
Yes.
support the ones that are here.
Yes, but the thing is with a lot of restaurants, people don't realize is that for your first year, you need to have enough money not to make any money.
Oh, I know, for sure.
In most restaurants, and I've worked in downtown development my entire life, most people that go into business should not go into business. because they don't realize what they need to do, and they're all about, and I probably shouldn't be saying this publicly, but I am, but there's so many people who go into business just wanting to not work for somebody else, but then they go into business and they don't do enough
Work for their own self.
research on their own to know how to run a business.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons, but, I mean, a restaurant can open up in Spartanburg, and all of us never support it, and it'll still do well, because there's enough people in that area who will go to it. You can't ask everybody to go out every single night, or every other night, or that sort of thing. You've got to have more people out here.
And you can't go to the same one all the time either. That's a lot of people get kind of discouraged. Because we have so many limited here, you can only go maybe once or twice a week, or but that's it. And but going to the same one all the time, a lot of times people just can't put up with that. They don't like that. They like variety. So that's another reason it's not supported. But hey, look at Phil's up here. Phil's doing real good.
Tracking
And they've been running.
The
There's others, but they know how to run a restaurant. They know what they're doing. And they keep changing a little bit around.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you gotta have some expertise. Like he said, I've been in the restaurant business, by the way, a long time ago. And I didn't go out of it, I just sold it. Because I didn't have enough time and work too, at a regular industry, so.
All right, let's think where we at, where are we?
What was it?
So, we're up to Article 4, so 4-1, use regulations. These are the landscaping and signs and parking, those types of things. Does anybody have any questions about the landscaping? Languages? Probably the best thing to do is go to page 4-12 for that chart. So the way you implement this, again, is based on use, it's not on zoning. So if you look at the column on the left, proposed land use, so that's what you're choosing to build in the future, and then existing land use across the top is already what's there. So, for example, if you're building new single family, you don't have to do any landscaping next to anybody else, because you're not that impactful to anybody else. But if you're doing heavy industrial, you have to do very heavy landscaping, except adjacent to industrial or the public right-of-way. You still have to do some, but less. So you have to have a heavy, L4, L5 is a berm with a fence with heavy planting to separate those uses. And all these L1 through L5 are all described in that section as to what that includes in there, so. As a responsibility of the new construction to provide the buffer. Signage we talked about a lot. We go to the temporary signs section. Which is really the only thing that we really changed. So 4-25, the temporary sign language. We took out most of the restrictions on that. All temporary signs must receive a permit prior to being displayed. Must be located on private property outside of the road right-of-way. This allows off-premise temporary signs as long as you have the permission of the property owner. And then you have a few that are allowed without a permit, construction and development signs, so, a bank being built, there's a development sign that says who the builder is, who the lender is, that kind of thing. Lawn signs, this is you in your yard if you want a little stake sign that says the 10 Commandments or something about motorcycles you see in people's yards, things like that, you're allowed to have that. Real estate signs, so, house for sale type signs, and then help wanted signs are allowed without permits. Billboards, we changed so that billboards are only allowed along US 176, and all billboards must be located within 100 feet of the edge of the right-of-way. And then sign maintenance, talks about signs that are broken or signs for a business that has gone out of business, and time restrictions on when those have to be removed or repaired. Parking, we talked about a lot. The main change there that we made was that we stated specifically that it was not required in the CBD district. Off-street loading requirements is basically for a business, if you have to have space to offload a truck. So if somebody's bringing materials to your place of business, there's a loading zone for that, so you're not blocking aisles, you're not in the road blocking traffic, things like that. So is what that gets towards. General provisions, I don't know that we had a lot of questions about these. Again, things like street access and double frontage and corner lots, non-conforming uses, home occupations, parking and storage of campers and RVs, parking and storage of vehicles on the property. Then 4-42, you've got like the manufactured housing standards. So you've got the manufactured housing zoning district, which points to this section, which talks about the additional things you have to have, about the guidelines that you have to pass, have to be installed in accordance with the manufacturer's manual, permanent landing and steps with handrails, pitch of the roof so it looks more like a residence. It's not just like the old type that has a flat roof on it. So it looks more like a standard single-family house. Exterior siding, skirting, the transportation equipment must be removed from the mobile home or manufactured house. Can only be used as a house, can't be used for other uses. Group living standards we talked about, cell towers we've gone through. Mobile commercial structures, bed and breakfast standards, we changed that to allow, let's see, allow any parcel, we should have taken out where it had to be built prior to the passage of the ordinance. We made it 14 nights instead of 7 nights. So we put those changes in there based on our conversation. And then administration and enforcement, and then the BZA, we've talked about, changed the language in there about the membership. And that is that. Anybody have any other questions?
My question is, what's next?
What's next is, if y'all are good with this, then the March 12th, what right now is on the schedule is for March 12th to be a public hearing. Anybody in the community can come out and say what I like or what I don't like about it. And then y'all can vote to approve this. You can make amendments to it. You can change whatever you want to. But then, it needs to be, you voted on as it is, or you voted on with amendments and recommend to council. And then council has to have 2 readings on this for it to go into effect.
Are we going to have to state the amendments that we made today, such as coming before the planning commission and things? Will we have to state that when we vote, or will that just be implied because we fixed it?
That'll be updated in this ordinance, so the one you get on the 12th will include those changes already.
And we'll have a new zoning map where we'll take away that part of that?
Right.
Okay.
Yep, that'll all be, so you'll be asked to pass it with those changes we've talked about tonight. So you will not need to restate those.
I have a concern on the administration and enforcement. It said it shall be the duty of the appointed zoning administrator, and that's going to be Patrick.
Patrick is the appointed zoning administrator.
I had talked earlier in an earlier meeting about maybe having the CCI people. I mean, I think Patrick has a lot on his plate, and I would just like to see someone in addition to him being able to go around and enforce and see these things.
There's the ability that's in there that says the zoning administrator or anyone he appoints.
Okay.
Yeah, you give them one notice.
Yeah, I just don't want you to get too much on your plate and it get, you know.
So a lot of towns will utilize somebody from the police department, they're used to writing tickets, they're used to enforcing certain ordinances, and so you see that a lot. So you get help from them with somebody on staff, or the town could contract with somebody, like you said.
That ship has sailed.
What should we say?
I have a lot of stuff. And if you end up growing the community and you bring in more revenue into the community, then the town could hire somebody
We
else
talked
to be able
about
to do that.
that, but right now, I just think you need a little bit of help too. And that CCI, I would like to know exactly what all they're gonna be doing.
They're gonna be doing building permits and code enforcement.
Okay, so
for the
they can
town.
help you.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was.
And they're also going to, we talked about, they've got a program that will help me do zoning. It's free of service, free of charge.
So are they gonna be riding around Packard in neighborhoods looking at people?
What's gonna,
Yes.
for one thing, just so,
In the big city.
just so you know,
What you wanted.
just so y'all know, and some people don't know this, if you're on a public road, I can take pictures and I can look at your house all day long.
Okay, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's like we're unleashing those people and letting them do that. We couldn't tell them not to do
It's
that.
gonna be, code enforcement is gonna be on call. I mean, when we need them to come out, it'll probably be like one day a week. But it's all based off of need. And we're gonna be addressing code enforcement in a different way. And what I mean by that is we're not gonna keep score by seeing how many violations we can write. We're gonna keep score as how many violations we can solve. And so they're gonna spend more time with individuals to try to solve the problem of code enforcement than just writing a bunch of tickets and sending them all out and pissing off a lot of people.
So when we come back on the 12th, we'll be voting?
You'll be voting if you want to. If you don't feel like you can come to a consensus, then we'll abandon it.
Tired of abandoning everything.
Only 12.
Okay,
It's abandoned.
We adjourned?
can I have a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
that we adjourn.
Second?
I'll have to look.
Second? Meeting adjourned.